Hey, listeners, just a quick note before we start the show. About halfway through the episode, my microphone went out unbeknownst to me, so I will sound like I'm calling in from a telephone line from 1985. So that happens for about 10 minutes, and then my audio kicks back in. So hopefully you can put up with that, and then enjoy the rest of the episode. And now on to the show.
It is better to think of church in the alehouse than to think of the alehouse in church.
And they're off. So, when was the last time we spoke?
We spoke on
A
Saturday.
week ago.
But Tuesday was the last day we recorded.
I don't think. Do we need to bore anybody? We've talked about the football. We don't need to talk about football in this. Oh, you want to?
No, I didn't. No, I don't. I'm sure everybody. If you want me to get up there and say Oregon lost, it sucked.
Oh, I wouldn't even think about that.
We got, as the people on TikTok would like to say, we got belt to ass by Indiana. Congratulations to the Indiana football team. Again, I think I also said it that Tuesday before. I really wanted us to win, but I didn't know. I didn't think we had. I was hoping for a much closer game than that, but still, I thought it was going to be a very tough game in order to beat that Indiana football team. So there we go. So again, nothing but kudos to Signetti and Indiana. I'm rooting for you guys in the national championship game.
I don't know it's going to be as bad as the last game, but it's going to be somewhere like the Alabama and the Oregon game. Indiana's going to beat Miami like that. And one, I think Miami's talented, but what Miami has for it is they're similar in roster makeup to Indiana, where they have, I don't know, they got 10 guys who've been playing starting 3 years at a school. They've got 19, 20 guys who've been playing 4, and they've got 10 guys who've been playing 5. And that's been kind of the roster makeup of the last couple of championships. So they have that. The problem is they are a Mario Cristobal team, which means they're undisciplined at times. And that's the one thing. The only way they can beat Indiana is not be themselves, which is be sloppy and get dumb penalties. And they had 10 penalties in that Ole Miss game. They dropped a bunch of interceptions, and I just don't think those things are going to happen. They're going to have to play perfect. And I just don't think they're capable of doing that. I also don't think they're going to be able to, when they've won in big games, not because of Carson Beck. Everyone likes to talk about, it's Carson Beck. No. If you look at the stats when they win, it's because they get up close to 200 yards rushing, and Beck has to do, not disrespectful to Beck. I mean, that's what most good coached teams do. You run the ball and you take pressure off your quarterback. And so when he wants to cork one because the defense is worried about running, he's got wide open guys. I mean, so I just don't think they're going to have that. I think Indiana's going to have if Indiana scores the way they've been scoring, they're not going to have the ability to. No, it's not that they won't have the ability. They will not stay disciplined enough to run the ball. You could see that in the Ole Miss game. The offense, Miami's offensive coordinator, he panicked a lot. There were times where he wasn't even. I don't know if he got bored or he panicked, but they'd call these flea flickers or reverses out of nowhere. It's just keep running the ball. Just stay simple. So I think they're going to lose by 3 touchdowns at least. But I don't know. Could be wrong. I mean, if I wake up, if I'm sitting there and halfway through Miami's in a game and it's a barn burner, I'm not going to be shocked either. But I just don't see it. That Indiana team just looks. It's that look you see in a team, and it doesn't matter what sport it is, where you're just that they're just not gonna. Everything's working right.
Yeah, they're the 2026 Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's like, well, look at their schedule. They're undefeated. They've beaten a bunch of ranked teams. So
Indiana, that's who schedule. They said look at their schedule.
Yeah,
They beat everybody.
I know.
Like
It's
they
so
beat.
dumb.
I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, if you're watching college football and you don't think that Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana are not the top 3 teams in the country, I know that Oregon got again beat the shit out of by Indiana, but again, that proves just how good Indiana is.
Well, the 2 losses were to what might be that I think is going to be the national champion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like
which is the defensive Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning can say like, yeah, I haven't gotten there yet, but
yeah, and
the last 2 years I've lost to the national champion.
And Oregon still put up 22 points against a really good Indiana defense. And also, I'm not going to take, like, I don't know what could have happened, but also know that 4 of their touchdowns were scored on a shortened field for them.
Well, that's the defense for it not being as bad as this week. Miami's not going to lose that bad.
Yeah. They're not going to make, because, I mean, Moore had a crappy day, 2 turnovers within the 20-yard line, fumbles within Oregon's 20-yard line. He fumbles it. The pick 6 was before the 20-yard line, and that didn't even matter because it was a pick 6, and then blocked punt before the 20-yard line.
Yeah, I just don't see that not happening. Maybe not as much, but not happening at least once against Miami.
Yeah. So again, I think Oregon still scored points. I still don't think we win that game with all of those. But I mean, if you take away 28 points away from their 56 or whatever, I mean, it looks a lot closer than it was. So, but there you go.
All right, enough of that.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry. And it was good. We got to hang out on Saturday, so we got to get it all out of our system, talk about it, blah, blah, blah.
What else is going on?
Oh, yeah, just how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. I've been in a funk for like 2-3 months, if I'm being honest. I go through these periods where I have like insecurity. It's completely irrational insecurity, but I start questioning like, are my friends really my friends? I don't, what are they saying about me? Like, and it's not like they're like my friends are being like mean girls. It's like they're seeing through me, and so when I leave, they're like, man, I'm really tired of him being an asshole kind of thing. So it's kind of fighting through that.
Dang.
And I've had these bouts my entire life, and they come and go, and there's never like a moment that it just kind of happens. I mean, I'm sure if I had a therapist, they could sit down and be like, oh, it happened because of this. And, but it's too many degrees of separation for me to figure it out. And that's not really important anyway. It's just, so.
I've never said anything bad about you. Other than,
I know. Oh, actually, people could say bad things about me. So Friday we spent, well, I mean, I've been going Fridays to Kauai, but this one seemed to be more important. And then, and it might have been just because I'd finally become aware of like, yeah, you've been in a funk for a while, and this is what it is. And then us hanging out on Saturday. And that just might be what it is. The holidays, it seemed like this was a weird holiday season. Like, I didn't see much of you. I saw Nolan, but I didn't see much of you. I didn't see much of Andy. I've not seen any air. Like, there's a lot of friends that I just haven't seen. And so you just kind of distance. It's like, yeah, they've been away for a while, and now they're seeing right through me. And it's just, again, it's irrational.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
That sucks, man.
I mean, yeah. Well, since I've been very open about it, my wife and I went back to the church that we left on Sunday, and we're thinking about permanently going back. It was an interesting experience. I thought so we've been at this other church for a couple years, and my wife and I aren't leaving there in a huff or anything. Like, if I knew someone in Visalia and they were looking for a church, I'd tell them to go to that church in a second. I believe in everything that church is doing. I believe in the staff. It's not that it doesn't mean I agree with everything they do. I could criticize some things about how that church is made up. But I think that's more a reflection of the people who go there than the staff, and the staff are doing. But I don't want to get into it here. we're leaving. The church is. This is going to seem absurd if you're in a big town. Basically, we're in one city next door to another, and even though there's a couple miles that separate the two towns, and we're basically just one large town or one suburb of another town, there are uniquenesses to the two towns. I guess it wouldn't even matter if you were living in Los Angeles and you were traveling. How many miles is that church? 20 miles? 15 miles? It's a 25-minute drive from my house with no traffic. So it's probably about 25 miles. It's on the total opposite from side of town. It's a whole other different world. And even though that church is national standards, it's a large church. It's, what'd we say? We've said here on before, we guess it was like 3,000.
I mean, it's one of the two mega churches in Visalia.
It's a big church. It is a upper class church, and it's mostly made of professionals it's all made up of professionals pretty much in the town next door. And so because of how big it is and it's 25 minutes away, my wife and I just haven't built any community there. There's not people. The only people we really develop relationships with are the staff. And again, it's not because the church is unfriendly or anything. It's just there are reasons for it. I don't want to get into that. And so my wife and I feel like we're back at a point where we need to be with people. It's more important to be with people we know than it is how well the church is run, whether or not we agree with everything. If we, really love the preaching and all that kind of stuff, it's more important to be in and around community on Sundays. And I think, for my wife in particular to be in a position where she can get into small groups. I will say publicly, their small groups at neighborhood are odd, particularly for the women. They're all like during the week and during the day. It's not a pro. It's not a very. If you want to be in a women's.
So what
Bible,
Tim was trying to say earlier when he said that it's professional, it's a professional. All the people are professionals, and you meant all the males that go to the church are professionals, and all.
Well, I meant if you're a female and you're professional, you're screwed. But the way the women's groups are. Their women's groups are really tailored to stay-at-home moms, which, nothing wrong with that. But anyway, all that to say, so we went back for the first time in a long time, and it was interesting. I was expecting to be like, oh, I feel like I'm back at home, but I didn't quite have that. I didn't quite have that feeling either. That's not to say we're not going to keep going, and I kind of feel like I'm being prodded to go, so whether or not I feel comfortable or good about it is immaterial. It's like, nope, you need to go. I want you here. But it wasn't like warm fuzzy, like, oh yeah, this is like being back home. Like, nope. It was like, nope, I still have grievances and things that I'm not comfortable with, and so.
I mean, good for you. I legitimately can't go back. Like, even if he's not there, like, it's just.
It's not even that. It's just.
Well, you know what? Actually, I feel it's one of our topics tonight, and I feel like I can kind of talk about that and explain that then. So, on kind of why I don't feel like going back.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we might keep going back, and if it, again, at this point, I feel like we're being kind of pushed and prodded by the Holy Spirit to go back. But
for sure,
if I feel like this 2 months from now, it's going to be like, all right, enough, or like, you need to show me why this is happening, because I'm not feeling it. So now, to be fair, take that somewhere else. To be fair, because of circumstances I don't want to get into, we just kind of ducked in, ducked out. We didn't do like the whole social butterfly, like shake hands and see people. So, and that might, once we do that, it might be like, okay, this is why we need to show up and be able to have conversations with people after church and before church, and just, exist outside the little bubble we have with work and other friends. So We'll see. I've heard they're going to start going back to Sunday school. I'm not doing that. So how are you?
I'm okay. Started back to work yesterday.
And you're already sick of it.
No, actually, I mean, I need a routine.
You texted me today. What did you say? You were woozy? That was a joke.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I felt this way kind of like, I think it was Saturday, maybe it was Sunday. I just felt like I'm off kilter or something. Like there's something going on. I don't know. It's just,
It's the weather.
yeah, I don't know. It might be affecting my inner ear or something. There's just something where it's like I just feel, ugh, it's not been great. But because some people's allergies are acting up, and I don't get allergies, but last time allergy season came around, I had some like balance issues, and I went to the doctor, and they were like, "You got a lot." They were like, "You ever have allergies before?" And I was like, "No." And then they're like, "You got a lot of fluid in your ear." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't even know what that means." So yeah. But other than that, I mean, I'm glad to be back at work, back in a routine. I'm glad we get like time away from the kids and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I don't know. I need something that's just like, I got it. Like, I got to keep going, doing stuff. And I get a lot of life from it. But yeah, so it's kind of like a weird thing with teachers, and I get it. But a lot of people don't, where it's like, you're always looking forward to the next break, but then like you're restless in like summers and winters, kind of thing, where it's like, I got to do this, got to do that. My winter break was not, a lot of kids have asked since I came back. They're like, how was your winter break? And I'm like, it was fine. And then they give me a look, and I was like, it was stressful. And then they're like, why was your winter break stressful? And I'm like, I'm not meant to be a single parent. Like that's, I was like, I was like, I love my daughter and I love my son, but this winter break was a lot for me. Like I'm working. I was like, and honestly, in summers, it's not that bad, but winter was rough this year because my wife, because ag doesn't stop, and she was able to get off on Christmas or New Year's Day. That's great. But what you don't see is that my wife is then working from like literally dawn until 5 p.m. every single day to make up for that. So I'm single dad until 5 p.m. until the kids go to bed so my wife is home for 2 hours that the kids are awake, and I'm there with them from my daughter gets up at like 6:30 in the morning all the way up until 5 without assistance. And so that's just, I'm not like, some people are cut out for it. Some people love it. It's just really stressful. I enjoyed my time and I was grateful for it. And, but it's also just something that I'm much better at with two people. Like,
Yeah.
So props to the people that are able to do it. For me, it's just like, oh man, this is a lot for me to do 5 days a week, 6 days a week. So yeah. So glad to be back at work. I think it makes me a better dad if I have a little bit of a break. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, there you go. Cool.
Do we have a trivia question tonight?
I was going to ask you. Well, yeah.
Or something similar?
Something of that variety. Do you want to do our beer of the week? Oh, I guess you have the bottles over here.
Beer of the week is Russian River's Hop Father IPA. I think pretty sure we've done this one before.
Brewed with Brewer's Gold, Amarillo, and Centennial hops.
Those are all his favorites, I think.
Really does like Centennial and Amarillo.
Is this the one that he does with the Brewer's Gold, or he does a couple of them? I don't remember.
He's done two. The other one is a little bit more grapefruity.
That's
the other
right.
one is the something Brewer's Gold. It was like, I don't remember what R&D series number it was, but
we did it on episode 37, which was part of our Mere Christianity series, and then we did it again during episode 124, War, Politics, and Theology.
Woo!
So yes, it's one of our Old Faithfuls. I think it comes out this time of year, doesn't it? That's why it comes out. I think I bought that in late November, maybe December. Anyway, yeah, Russian River Hop Father, fantastic. I bought 2 bottles. One was bad, and I don't know why. There might have been an issue with our fermenter refrigerator that we had to use we had an issue with it, and everything froze. Everything got down to, I think, 30 degrees. No, it wasn't 30. It was like 34. It wasn't quite freezing, but it was close. But some stuff still froze. Well, that was the soda pop. Soda pop probably freezes quicker. Yeah, it does. There's a couple Coke Zeros in there that blew up.
All right.
All right, enough rambling.
All right. Tonight, in honor of the Golden Globes, you are going to name what are the 8 movies that have the most Golden Globe wins.
Like all time?
All time, what are the 8 movies that have won the most Golden Globes?
How long do the Golden Globes go back?
Do you want me to tell you the old? I don't know how long they go back, but I can tell you the oldest movie on this list is 1954.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine enough. That's fair enough. Okay, so 8.
8 movies. 5 of them are tied with 5 Golden Globes. 2 of them are tied with 6, and 1 swept all their categories with 7. Do you want me to tell you the years, or do you want
Not
that
now.
later? Okay, no.
Gone with the Wind.
No.
Oh, come on. It's the highest selling movie of all time.
I feel like the Golden Globes has a different criteria than the Oscars.
It's hoity-toity. It's even more hoity-toity than it's Hollywood's. No, wait. No, it's that one. No, Oscars is Hollywood's. The Golden Globes are the writers.
Well, if you say that they're hoity-toity, I wouldn't be. I'd think hoity-toity on these. They're not bad. Like lots of people like these movies, but they're not like. If you're gonna go to The Godfather next, it's not on here. You know, like it's. Yeah. Don't think critically acclaimed is what I would say. But they are critically acclaimed. But don't think like. Don't go to Shawshank Redemption next either.
Oh, that one for sure not.
Okay.
What do you say? The first one was 1954?
That's the oldest, is 1954. The most recent is 2016. Everything else is pre-2000.
Jurassic Park.
No.
Braveheart.
No.
Forrest Gump.
Nope.
What?
Mm-mm. Do you want hints or no?
54. On the Waterfront.
No.
No, I don't try to do this without any hints.
Oh, okay. Should I get a beer?
You might want to. Bridge over the River Kwai.
No.
Oh, come on.
I don't know 2 of these movies.
Schindler's List.
Nope.
Oh, come on. I'm hitting box office.
I know
hits.
you're going like Oscar.
No, I gave you like box office hit movies too, and you said no. I mean, I'm not yelling at you.
I don't know. I feel like those movies won lots of Oscars, or won Oscars for like best film. But and remember,
they carry over. I mean, you can usually predict. A lot of people do predicting off what wins at the Golden Globes is what's going to win at the Oscars. But
also remember that in order so you could win best film. But that doesn't mean that you're going to win best costuming, best music, best, whatever. So like you have to have all of those things in order enough to get multiple awards. Right? So like I don't foresee anybody ever topping Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, because nobody does that anymore, especially with how much CGI
Whose
has
list
gone.
is this? This is the
Globe? Legit, like.
All right, Lawrence of Arabia.
No.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes, for your first one. That one has 6 wins, including Best Picture, Actor, Actress, and Director. Which is pretty good. 1975.
One of the Lord of the Rings.
No, which that's surprising. Because you say that they carry over, and they swept the category, winning 11 Oscars.
Amadeus.
No.
Beautiful Mind.
No.
Sunset Boulevard.
No. I feel like that's older than 54.
Chinatown.
No.
Golly.
Sunset Boulevard's older than 54, right?
No.
It's in black and white.
Oh, yeah. It's yeah. Citizen Kane's not on there.
Nope.
And you said not on the waterfront?
No, not on the water.
That's 1954. What other movie won that year? Oh, I think that was one of those years. It was one of those big years. I think that's a quiz show. Quiz show is another movie.
This one is actually a fun one. Like I said, I'd have a hint for you. I don't know if it would be helpful for you or not.
Wizard of Oz.
No.
Network.
Isn't Wizard of Oz like 1940s? No.
Apocalypse Now.
Nope.
American Beauty.
No.
E.T.
Nope.
Kramer versus Kramer.
No. We actually talked about one of these movies recently. Again, I'm trying not to give you hints. So I'm like...
An old one?
Do you want me to tell you the year of the one that I'm talking about?
I don't think at this point it's going to help.
No. You talked about this movie with two people. We talked about it. You talked about it with somebody else. You were one down, 7 to go.
How recent is what's the most recent one? What year?
2016.
2016.
I can't believe that this movie came out in 2016. It feels like it's came out like 3 years ago is what it feels like it came out in my mind.
The Graduate.
There we go. That was the one that
we talked about recently.
Yeah. You talked about that with Nolan. You talked about it with me. Graduate 1967 it's one of those that's tied with 5 Golden Globes.
It's another big hoity-toity movie. No Gandhi.
Yep, Gandhi.
Gandhi's one of them.
1982, Gandhi. He's one of those that's tied with 5.
Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah, I don't know that movie. That's the one that I don't know.
That one's based on the Russian Revolution.
1965, also tied with 5 Golden
Everyone
Globes.
loves that one. What year was that?
1965.
Interesting. I'm shocked Lawrence of Arabia is not on there.
I mean, I'm sure it won. I'm just saying it didn't win all of the categories.
There's no Batman on there?
No Batmans.
No
Dark Knights, no nothing.
2016. I don't know. 2016 is a blur. Is there a movie that's it's 3 billboards and something?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
So you need one more 6, one with 7, and then 2 more 5s.
And Godfather's not on there.
Nope, not on there.
Good grief.
Again, probably won Golden Globes, just didn't
what years are left other than 2016?
2016, 1954, 1975, and 1978.
Not the latest one, but 70s version, A Star is Born.
Yeah, actually it's a 50s.
Oh, the 50s version is.
Yeah, 1954, A Star is Born.
Oh. Well, so that's a franchise they've done that one well because it's spaced out that you can actually change the story to fit because I don't know that one. I want to see that one. I've never seen that one, but the one with Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand's fantastic.
Nice.
And then, of course, the latest one's really good, but I always skip the end.
So that one won 5.
What's the other year?
You have 1978 and 1975.
2001.
No.
That came out in 1970, 71, I think, anyway. I just said that. A Love Story.
No.
Damn. And I said Sundance.
You didn't say Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
And you said there's one from the 80s?
No. There's 78, 75, and 2016.
Well, Close Encounters.
No.
78. It's not Star Wars.
Nope. I'm sure that won like best costuming or something.
Raging Bull.
Nope.
Midnight Express.
Yes, that is your second 6 win. 1978, Midnight Express. Dominant year for the film, winning across drama and supporting categories.
That movie is where Bobby, have you ever been in Turkish prison reference comes from.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I thought it was actually like a real life thing, but
Well, it is. It's based on her, but it's based on a guy, if I remember correct, who's been caught selling or trying to get hashish out of Turkey. And
you ever been a set of a Turkish prison?
yeah.
You ever seen a grown man naked? Oh, airplane.
Oh.
You have 1975 and
2016. I know what it is. It's either it's one of two movies. It's there's the one where the black kid gets killed. I can't remember the name of that one. Or it's La 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 Land.
It's La La Land.
Yeah.
Won the Golden Globes, swept the Golden Globes in all of its categories, but did not win Best Picture in the Oscars.
We ate at a restaurant that is heavily featured in that movie.
Moonlight?
Moonlight. That's the one I couldn't remember. So what I got left?
You have 1975, a 5 award winner. I don't know this movie.
I don't know.
Named after a city in the South, known for country music.
Oh, Nashville.
Nashville.
That's Sybil Shepherd's first movie.
Nashville,
and I think that one might have Chris Christopherson in it too. Maybe it's somebody else. Nashville. That's a really good director, though. I can't remember his name, but who is Nashville's director? Yeah, I would have never gotten that one. I know of the movie, and I've seen it once.
Never seen it. Haven't seen that one.
Nashville movie, 1975.
Haven't seen the Doctor.
Ned
and I haven't seen
Beatty. It's a Robert Altman movie. He's a really good director. Keith Carradine, Shelley Duvall, Lily Tomlin, Ned Beatty, Jeff Goldblum. Wow, that's a really young Jeff Goldblum if he's in that. Scott Glenn. Wow. Where's Sybil Shepherd? She was in it. I know she's in it. It's first movie. Maybe not. Elliot Gould. Just whatever. There's maybe Sybil Shepherd wasn't in that movie. She did not appear in Nashville. Okay, not Sybil Shepherd, but lots of other people.
You were supposed to drink them fresh.
Oh,
sugar.
Oh, geez.
What happened with these?
I don't know.
I'm driving a little crazy coming back from that way. This wasn't part of the breeze, was it? I don't think so.
No.
It's going to be a massive head on the 70.
Porta Leg Nolan.
You know what? I was driving here. You know what tickled me pink on my drive here today? I was thinking about the fact that Eric forgot that we had been to Hot Monk, and that just cracked me up so much. I was just thinking about it. And then like trying to explain it to him, and then just like being like, yeah, we went to a brewery, we ordered beers. Nolan tried to hit on the waitress. And it just sounding like every time that we've ever gone out. Good times.
The best.
And it's the most Sonoma track friendly brewery around.
It is.
Because it's close to the track.
Every year we never plan on going, and every year we end up doing it because it gets late, and they're the ones that stay open late. And if you show up 10 minutes before, you might eat. They actually kind of gave us grief when we walked in like 10 minutes before close, but it was just kind of like, yeah, all right. But they just sat us by the bartender, and then the bartender just took care of us, and he was fine. He was just like, he said, all right, I got 10 minutes. Give me a drink order. I'll come back. I'll take your food. And then when I come back, I'll give you another chance to buy a round or two. And so we put in an order. He came back. We put in our food. I think it was just me, Spear, and Nolan. And then Eric might have been there. No, I don't think Eric made it on that trip.
That would have been last year then, I think.
It was this last trip.
Oh, yeah.
And then he put in the food order, walked over, put the food order in, and came back and said, all right, another round. And so I think Nolan and I put another like 2 beer orders, maybe even 3. He was like, he was fine doing whatever. Because again, that place is great. They don't care. They got to clean up at night. That it's a well-run restaurant. They don't clean in the morning. They clean at night, and I imagine then they clean again in the morning. That's what we did at the one place I worked at. You did a full clean. You did a clean at night, and then there was a full clean the next day. And the thought behind it was, if something happens in the morning, at least it's been somewhat clean, but we're not like leaving it to the morning staff to do like a deep clean.
It's actually why I hated closing shifts at fucking Jamba Juice, because openers just got to show up and just like opening shifts were great. Sure, you had to be up at 6 a.m. and be at the store at 6 a.m., but like you just got to like, turn the lights on.
Check the cash register.
Turn on the oatmeal machine, put the cash boxes in, fucking... It's a fucking war zone for closes, bro. Because people are like, oh man, when do I want a smoothie? I don't want it for breakfast. I want it as a dessert. So they come in and you're mad cleaning, scrubbing the whole store from like top to bottom. You got to scrub everything.
Yeah, the burger place I worked at, the guy did it really well. The kitchen cleaned up at night, and the customer area, the dining area, cleaned up in the morning. And they would do a full mop and scrub, like wall to floor. Tables get washed down, full mop on the floor, and you'd scrub the walls too. And that was every day. But the kitchen would do it at night. Beer number 2 is, we're drinking it not fresh. It's still delicious. Stone Enjoy by 126 double IPA, coming in at 9.4%. Woo!
I'm making mine look like a Duff beer from The Simpsons. Got a nice head on mine.
We don't have any new beers this week, folks.
Yeah, sorry.
Everything's reruns.
I think even the stuff that's in my fridge that I could have brought over here, I think would still have been reruns.
What?
I think the stuff that's in my fridge that I have right now still would have been reruns.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have Swammy in my fridge and I have another pizza port that I don't know what it's called, but I'm pretty sure we've had it on here.
I'm sure we have. It's all good. All right, we want to get to the main topic?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
All right, so if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know it's a common refrain topic for us to deal with is home church. We talked about it, I don't know, 3-4 episodes ago, maybe 5 or 6, but we talked about it recently. I don't think, and we didn't like intend to talk about home church, which actually is usually that's what it is.
You're talking about on the show. We never intended to talk about home church.
Huh?
We're talking about like the show in general. We did
that episode. We did not mean to talk about. We just like rounded.
I don't think
up
we've
the
ever
conversation.
intentionally ever talked about home church where we've been like. I think we've always.
Yeah, that's my point. I don't think we've ever like sat down and said home church. We just kind of wind up there.
Yeah, we just stumble into.
And I had said on that episode, it'd be nice if someone just shut their church down and started doing home church, and then remembered that Francis Chan didn't shut his church down, but he quit and started a home thing. So then on a subsequent episode, you and I talked about briefly, I don't know, 10 minutes. That's brief for us. We talked about I think it was like 5 minutes. We talked about it
was half an hour.
Home church network that he's created that's got like now 10 cities. So I went looking for anything on. So fast forward to tonight, I went and looked for reasons to find reasons why he had left, because I hadn't seen. I knew he'd left and started a home church thing, but I didn't know why. And so quickly stumbled upon something he just recently recorded. Apparently he doesn't really talk. He doesn't do many. So Chan does, I think he's got his own, his ministry is still called Crazy Love. And so you'll see him do interviews of people, and his sermons, I think, are published every week. But he doesn't really sit down for interviews. He doesn't sit down with podcasters. They even talk about this in the episode we're going to talk about, how he doesn't, until recently, he's not really done sit down interviews with people. But he recently sat down and did episode with the Christian hip hop artist Lecrae, and they talked for an hour and a half. And within the first 10 minutes, Lecrae asks him, so, if you want to get into it, why did you do what you did and started the home church ministry? And so we're going to talk about those reasons that Chan lays out for why he started the home church, and then we'll go from there. But I just want to lay out, again, we've talked about his church before. It was started in Simi Valley, California. He and his wife started in 94. I think it was called Cornerstone Christian. And by the time he left, I think he was there over 30 years. He left about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. He resigned from the church, and I assume the church is still functioning, and it's probably still doing really well. So what Chan says, and I might try to drop in what he literally says on the show into this episode so people can hear actually what he says. But just, if I don't, just, we're being very, if not literal, but we're being very close to what he says.
Yeah.
He said, what he says is he was sitting at home one night and he turned to his wife. The epiphany that he had was sitting at home, and he turned to his wife and he said, if Jesus or Paul had a church in Simi Valley, my church would be bigger. He didn't say, I think it would be bigger. He said it would be bigger because I know how to keep a crowd. And then that led him to then look at his church, and he gave two specific reasons as to why he thought. He never says in the interview, to be fair, he never says in the interview whether or not he thinks he doesn't lay blame to the failure. He doesn't say whether or not he thinks he's to blame. He doesn't say whether or not he thinks the people going to the church are to blame. He doesn't even really lay blame. But he says two reasons why he believes that. One, the people of his church were not people who truly loved one another in the New Testament sense. And two, the people of the church weren't using the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And so because of that, he then, a few minutes, he and Lecrae talk about it back and forth, and he says, so at some point I realized it was better for me to just go. What I was trying to do to change the church wasn't helping, and so I just needed to go and do something else. So he left and started this home church thing. Before we get into discussion about it, I want to lay out two verses just to justify or give credence to what he's saying about those two reasons, two failings. He doesn't say what scripture it's based on, but if you do a quick look in your Bible or like even just Google it, I think you can come to a couple of verses that show where he's looking at this and justifying what he's thinking. So first one I would cite is Romans 12, chapter 12, starting in verse 3. And Paul says, For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has one body and with many members, and these members do not have all of the same function, so in Christ, though many form one body and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it's serving, then serve. If it's teaching, then teach. If it's to encourage, then encourage. If it's giving, then give generously. And if it's to lead, do so diligently. And to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Those are the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And then 1 Peter 4. So I think Romans 12 is certainly specifically is talking of what he's mentioning when he's talking about the Holy Spirit not using the gifts. 1 Peter 4, Peter says, the end of things is near, therefore be alert and sober mind, so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers all the multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. So that's teeing up the conversation. Just so everybody knows, Colton and I have not discussed this yet. So,
Are you wanting me to take a swing now?
So why don't you start? Why don't you open us up with your thoughts?
Well, let's start with the first bullet point, I think. Well, I mean, we could talk about his realization of yeah, I know how to draw a crowd. And I mean, if everybody's going to come, or do you not want to start there?
I want to insert. I don't know where you're going to go with this. I'm just going to say you've made a similar point before.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go to, I was like, I think he's wrestling with a lot of the things that we've talked about, or that I've talked about with a lot of the issues that I have with the church, where you have so many of these things added on, where it's like, again, I can get people, all of these pastors that are part of these large churches know how to get people involved, how to get people to stay, how to get people in the doors. If you want to, like, you can, fuck it, the Catholic Church knows how to do it, dude. Like, it's not hard. And you can use a variety of strategies. You can use guilt, manipulation, as, you know, that people can cast blame on the Catholic Church for doing for years. You can use power, money. You can use salvation. You can use
damnation.
You can use a really good concert setup. I was like, you can sit there and realize that you're a really good speaker, and you're just like, yeah, I can use this to make money. Like, you can do that.
Prosperity gospel.
Yeah. And you can constantly bring people. There's a variety of ways. And shout out to Francis Chan for sitting there and being like, I'm part of the problem. He knew it. That's what he said. Like, I know how to keep a crowd.
Yeah. Yes. He didn't, and I didn't say it in the moment, so he wasn't bragging. He was stating, I know how to keep a crowd. In fact, he says the problem with Paul and Jesus was they didn't keep a crowd. And again, that wasn't meant as criticism. In fact, they have later in that, I don't know if you made it all the way through. I think like 3/4 of the way through, Lecrae asks him about, you know, these megachurches in particular, and Francis said, yeah, I struggled with that. I still struggle with that. Like, numbers at the end of the day don't mean anything.
Yeah, it's, well, and I'll get to that in a minute. Well, I mean, I could get to it now. Because I think that it translates to the.
Sorry, finish your thought about you can say anything and get people in the door, because I think I cut you off.
Well, yeah, you could say things, and you don't even have to be lying. Again, a lot of these mega churches, they're doing good work. Like, they're not. There's good things that are happening in these places. I'm not sitting there and saying like, oh man, it's all corrupt. Again, nothing is so black and white as that. It's either they're good or they're bad, you know, kind of thing. Like, we try to speak out against that on this show. Is that there's a ton of gray area in between, and so to sit there and say everybody's fake that goes to Bayside,
no,
is false. You can't sit. I was like, a lot of those guys are really good guys. I was like, but they do have a business mindset. They do have a business model that they're adhering to, and they know, and they do strategize just as businessmen do, how to generate revenue for them and the people that are a part of them. And it's not even necessarily about the revenue, right? It's also, so let's get away from that aspect, because I don't know. I don't know. You may be thinking that not everything's about money in the church, Colton. And I'm like, that's fine. I was like, if you want to just, again, it still creates a very shallow engagement and a very shallow experience. When you're just trying to get people in the doors, you create a very shallow environment. And when you look at ministry planning, as somebody who had to do ministry planning, you can do one or the other. You can be small and deep, or you can be large and shallow. Those are your options.
Yeah, that is correct. There are no if I'm trying to use a pastor we don't usually use from a big church. It doesn't matter. If you're a pastor at a big church, like over 600, if I'm really being honest, but let's say over 1,000 to be generous about it. But if I'm really like 400 really is manageable. 600, there's still probably like a core of like a third of the church is like functioning as the church that Chan is talking about. But over 1,000, well, okay. I said earlier I wasn't going to that's my problem with neighborhood. It's so big. It's just a Sunday church.
Right. So then,
and I know there's small groups, and I'm going to be, and it's not because I really like Jason and I really like Forrest and Jordan, so I'm defending them. I think it's more of it's the mentality of the people who go there. They want to be Sunday people. Colton's waving his hand, and I'm sure if I had like a really serious, if I got Forrest drunk and said, what about small groups? He'd be like, yeah, we've tried. Like, you weren't here. You weren't here 15 years ago when we tried and it was a failure.
Well, and I mean, what I would say is, so when you do,
so yes, shallow, big and shallow, small and deep.
So for ministry planning purposes, right? You sit there, so everybody goes in the room. And I mean, like, I didn't sit in a room with anybody on this. Like, this is, if you sit there and you plan it all out for yourself, right? Where you go, all right, here's my youth ministry board. And my youth ministry, therefore, applies to the larger ministry. I was like, sure, we're not all as a church taking a trip to Six Flags, but okay. But what is a trip to Six Flags? Oh, that's a outreach event. So that's picnics, that's food trucks, that's whatever. Those are outreach events. Okay, those are that kind of shit. That's what that is. It's invite your friends. And you'll notice that the sermons on that particular day are not very deep. Okay, so anytime that Forrest ever has food trucks or whatever, you're getting a very surface level.
It's the TED Talk. It's the self-help kind of. It's not a challenge.
Yeah,
it's not a challenge. That's probably overstated. It's
Father's Day, Super Bowl. I was like, all of those outreach event type
seeker
stuff.
friendly.
I was like, Mother's Day. Those are all. Even now, Easter and Christmas have become. I'm sorry to say it. They become more watered down. And why is that? Well, because that's when a lot of people go to church for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And so how do you, and I'm not saying that the message is less impactful or whatever, but I'm telling you that there is a strategy around those now that is more about getting people to stay in church. And so again, if you're sitting there and you're like, and I'm explaining this to you again, I've completely taken the money out of it. I'm not sitting there and saying that this therefore creates revenue, but you can start connecting those dots in your brain if you want. So you have all this outreach. Okay, but then we sit there on our strategy board and we're like, okay, well, that's going to appease the majority. But we still got church people that are going to come in here and they're going to say, I want more. I want depth. So how do we create that depth? We can't do it on these days. We can't do it on Sundays. Or like if we go on a Sunday, like it's going to be like an occasional thing on a Sunday where we test the waters a little bit. And then we sit there and we say, all right, I don't want any emails or I don't want any text messages about blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then how do we then create this depth? And then so then we have to have small groups. We have to create pockets where we have kids that are going to be of the same age or people of the same age or of different ages, but where they have one leader that's in charge of them and he's going to take care of them. And that becomes part of that flock, that discipleship thing, which Tim and I have already talked about. We're going to start a Christianese series. We texted about it today. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to break down some of these Christianese words. So like words like discipleship, evangelism, salvation. What do these words mean? What do they look like in the context of how we view the world today, kind of stuff. But so you have this, and therefore you have the small group. That's your depth. That's where the depth is supposed to come from. This is your connection. This is your community. So churches therefore create this community group, but they still want you a part of the mother church that's over the whole. And so therefore you create this structure that is, and so if you were to do, if you were to look at my calendar as a youth pastor, you'd sit there and see where my outreach days are. They're Wednesdays, or we do special events on Fridays. So it'd be like, okay, we do like a special events once every 2 weeks on Friday. So it's like, okay, so Wednesdays are still outreach. They can be deeper, but they're still, you're still looking at very surface level stuff. So those are my sermons, so to speak. Those are the worship things. Those are when people want me to be working with the students and all that kind of stuff. Fridays, the every other week Fridays, special events, those are even more outreach. So we're not even going to talk about necessarily God on those days. This is just an opportunity to get kids in the door. We're going to Six Flags, and they can get to know me and see me as not a threat or whatever. We're going to have a pool party at somebody's house. Maybe we sit there and we're just like, oh yeah, like let's talk about life for a second, and it's a 10-minute thing, outreach. And then I would have, but on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, or Fridays at lunch, Alec and I are going to, Live Oak, and we're hanging out at Don Pedersen's math class where he's, during lunch, where he's doing Bible study with kids on campus. And so that's the structure of what a church is trying to do. Now, what Francis is doing is he's reflecting on his time, because at this point he's a teaching pastor. And so all he is doing for his church now, he's doing other things, but the majority of his time is structured around that Wednesday night, or what we would consider those Sunday mornings. And that is so tough for a lot of people, especially, I think Francis actually had to do some searching and realize that one of those spiritual gifts that he's talking about, that he's actually probably best at, is actually discipleship. And so discipleship people need the small group. That's their jam. That's where they need to be. That is sorry, Tim walked away. He's coming back. I was like, am I wrong? I was
wagging my finger. Colton had just reminded me of a note I'd made. Now I know I had a note that I was cryptic, that I'd written down watching his podcast, and I was like, now I know what that is. Okay, keep going.
And he craves that deeper connection. And
he's a freak. He is a freak because he's both a teacher and a leader. And you're usually one or the other, but he's both. And I think his natural instinct is to teach. But to your point, I think what he had was a moment.
I think he's really freaking good at it. But that's so I grew up with a youth pastor who was the same way. Brandon Price is the same way. He has a talent for getting up and being able to speak in front of people, but really where he finds his niche is discipleship. He got his master's in discipleship because he's just like, this is my jam. I need that.
We can have Brandon on the show.
I need to have that small group and that's why, like Nolan and I were a part of a small group for him of leaders that he was like, I'm going to spend time with you. You're going to study under me. I probably learned more from Brandon in my high school years than I learned from my father in my high school years. And that's not abnormal, by the way. I was like, if you're like, oh, did your father abandon you? No, that's just how high schoolers work.
Yeah.
You reject your parents for a while, and you sit there and you go out into the outside world. And so him and Eric York was one of Brandon's original guys that he had brought in, where it was like Kellen was a part of that.
Yep.
And that's why Kellen and Brandon are still close. He was constantly trying to do that, where it's like, I'm going to take 4 or 5 boys, and these 4 or 5 are going to be the ones that are going to learn under me, and these are the things that they're going to learn from me. And it creates this environment where you have exactly what he's looking for, which is people who truly love one another and people using their spiritual gifts. In church is not centered around that. When we're talking about church, we're still talking about the Sunday and everything revolves around the Sunday in a church?
I would go even farther. I would say even most churches who have small groups, those small groups aren't geared towards, I would say those small groups are probably, hopefully, they are fostering love one another. So that's the group where Jane's mom dies and you have 8 other couples who bring you food, contact other people in the church, are there, take care of all the communication with the church, and they're just, that's your point of contact of like, don't worry about it. We're going to love on your family. We're going to take care of everything. Or Jane gets cancer and her husband's full-time working, like, we'll take care of the kids a couple days a week. We're going to bring you meals. Like, these are things you're not, like, that's your point of contact. I don't know that a lot of churches are getting that out of a lot of small groups. Thanks, Rick Warren, are just like, we're going to read a book, and it becomes just as shallow in a small group as it is on Sunday. And I think it's a 2-part problem. One, it's because there is no intentionality from whoever's in charge at the church level of leading the leaders of the small groups. And a lot of times people, and it's not their fault, are put in charge of leading small groups because like they've been there longer. We've talked about this before, like they've been there longer or whatever, and they're not actual leaders. And I don't mean like they're like telling everyone what to do. You know, I've mentioned before the small group we were in for a couple years, and that thing started in a shallow, like a typical small group. I think it first started out of, no, that was a different small group, and that small group died. This one started out of Rick Warren.
40 days in the Word.
It was, I think it was
purpose-driven life.
It was 40 days in the Word, and that was JC's fault too. That was one of his big fumbles. But it was in the midst of that we had somebody in the middle of a career crisis, and we had another person in the middle of a family, an older person dealing with an adult son crisis. And so, I'm not getting anything out of Rick Warren. Danika's not getting anything out of it. But we're also very adamantly not showing or saying that we're not getting anything out of it. My point is, because that group is sharing and we're continuing to meet, then that group then turns into this group that we go from being invited to do a outreach ministry for like 1 month or like once or twice or something. And that turns into a 2 or 3 year project where we take over the food kitchen and people's lives are transformed in that not, like major transformation, but like, and our soup kitchen wasn't like literally homeless. It was for also people who just like couldn't make their paycheck for the last week. We didn't go checking to see if you're homeless, but it was, you got to meet your neighbors who were down and out and wanted a free meal. And I don't know. Sorry. I think a lot of the groups don't get that. A lot of groups either stay inward, which is fine. If your group is just all about reading the Bible and getting together, that's part of the problem. You're doing what Francis Chan is saying. That's not it. That's not just it. It's not enough just to get around the Bible and talk about it. It is to love one another. And the leadership part of it is, or there should be some way of fostering people finding out what their gift is. That part is difficult. I'm not qualified to talk about how to do that, but that is something definitely where the church is bad at fostering people's gifts. Because I think, one, we don't talk about that much. That's like a Pentecostal thing or something. And two, we don't talk about it. I part of the reason is, I can see if you're a leader, like, well, I don't want someone who thinks that their gift is this and it's not really that. Or they use their gift in a toxic way, but it's not something we really deal with in the Protestant church in America, from my experience. And like I said, I've been to Presbyterian churches, I've been to Pentecostal churches, Baptist churches, non-denominational churches. Yeah, and none of them really seem to foster that.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's kind of funny.
I mean, I'm looking through these gifts. It's been a while since I just to throw shade at myself. I don't want to sound holier than thou. I'm reading through these gifts, and I got to the last one. I was like, oh, I forgot about show mercy, do it cheerfully. Like, what the hell does that even like? What does that look like from a day-to-day standpoint in a church?
Do you have tongues on there?
Tongues is not in this one. Tongues is listed somewhere else. What is that? Corinthians, where it's listed?
Yeah.
Unless this one uses this one uses prophecy, which I think is the same thing.
Oh yeah, prophecy's up there. I remember prophecy being on there. I know tongues is on there at some point, but
What does it say?
I do know prophecy's on there. Yep. Another time to plug in the fact that the best home church in Tulare is actually at Kauai on Friday nights. Again, we have the whole age spectrum there. Actually, we're the youngest now, and I feel like eventually there's got to be somebody younger that's got to join the group.
Well, I've told Jeff if he moves back and his work schedule works out, he's going to have to go. But he's just only slightly younger. But maybe if one of the Ashford boys moves back or something.
Yeah, I know. I was like, we're missing. I was like, because we have Roke. We have Roke and Jay up.
We need an Ashford and a Mendez.
Oh yeah, I don't know if Carter drinks.
Oh, we work on that.
You got. Listen,
Carter just started too, didn't he?
He's a year younger than Curtis, so he made it.
And are both Ashford boys at?
Both Ashford boys are at
Poly
together.
Anyway, calling out boys.
But Carter,
nobody knows.
Carter's in his third year at Azusa. But anyways, what I was saying about that is just we've got a nice, like, we're the youngest at 30, but we joined the crew at like 23, 24.
Yeah.
And then
and I remember I still have a vivid memory of you guys. I mean, I don't have a vivid memory of like the first time you showed up. I think somehow there was like a gap where I was traveling or something. And so you guys had been coming like a couple of weeks already, and I'd missed you, but it was like I walked up and was like, okay, these clowns are here. And I don't know how I ended up, but it all worked. It was all great. It was all, as we say in the church, it was all a blessing.
That's right. Kellen's pushing 40. Is he 40?
He's 40. I think today's his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Kellen. You guys are 50s.
50, what am I, 53, 54. Jay's exactly 1 year older. Well, not exactly, but he's 10 years older than me.
And
it's about 10 years older.
Yeah, I know. So it's crazy that we have such a huge age spread and we all just get along. Like, we're having a great time. I love everybody in our group. And I think that there's kind of like a testament to that of just like, again, you guys were very opening to us. I don't know how we ended up getting this involved with each other, honestly. It just happens naturally. You're all sitting there.
There wasn't anything. Well, there was not an intentional moment.
No.
But
we didn't get invited there by anybody else.
Jay and I had already had a conversation numerous times for several years of trying to be intentional. So there was another group of friends, and it was all where I was basically the youngest. It was me, and then everybody else was between like 6 to 10 years older. And that group would go off, and we'd go off and play golf for a weekend during the summer, do some other things. And one of the guys in there, Jay, his son, who's now 40, I would imagine, maybe a little bit older. It's probably a little bit older. It's like 42. Jay and I had a conversation about intentionally trying to bring in Brett and then Kellen and Simon to do this different generational thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think I don't remember a specific conversation about bringing you guys into the group, but I think it happened organically or something. And then once it happened, Jay was certainly understanding, like, oh yeah, this is what we do. We bring in the next group. And so if these guys are hanging out all the time, and he vaguely knew you guys from church, certainly knew your parents. And so it was like, yeah, this makes sense. So
my dad still talks about Jay's like the greatest volunteer that he ever had for ministry. There was like
there was something that broke. I think Jay came up and like brought his boat or something to like one mammoth trip that they were doing, and it something broke, and he drove it all the way back home, fixed it, and drove it all the way back up. And he was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen anybody do." Like, what the heck?
Can we just talk about Jay real quick?
I love that guy.
I've never had I've known Jay now 25 years. I've never had anything close to a theological conversation with him. I've never even asked him, like, so Jay, you've always gone to church. You were here way before I was. Profess your faith to me. I mean, you have these moments where you're around a guy forever and he goes to church, but he doesn't wear his Jesus on a sleeve. And I don't mean this as a criticism. I'm just saying that's Jay. And part of that's just Jay's mentality. Like, he's not an emotional guy. He likes to, and he's proud of it.
His favorite books are Jack Reacher or whatever, or Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy, that's what it is.
What's his name from Parks and Recreation?
He's Ron Swanson.
Yeah, his daughter once said, "You're Ron Swanson's your spirit animal." And he goes, "I don't know what that means." She goes, "Exactly." And then she explained to him what spirit animal means, and he goes, "Yes, that's me." So he's a Ron Swanson.
I'm sure he didn't say it like that. I can already imagine how he said. He said, "Okay, I don't know what that means."
All of that to say, there's those when Chan is talking about family and loving one another, he specifically uses the phrase people who would give the shirt off their back.
Yeah.
And that's Jay.
Yeah.
If you have a Rolodex of a couple people who you would call in a moment of a crisis, whether it be your house is on fire, you can't find your kid, and they've been missing 3 hours, or worse, and you can put Jay on that list, and you can put Andy on that list, then you're winning. You're winning.
Well, and here's
and so I don't need Jay to tell me what his testimony is. He lives it out he's always there, he's always volunteering, he's always helping, and it's not just friends. He hears about a lady in the neighborhood who goes to church who's elderly and doesn't have any kids, and he's there to move her refrigerator or do whatever he needs to do. He has no spiritual gift, but he is all in on encouragement and helping and all of that side of it, and someone to really look up to.
And his spiritual gift is definitely service.
Yeah.
He is, but his service is in a different, if you're thinking it's being an usher on a Sunday, no, it's like the legitimate version of being for service. I remember talking to him, and I love Jay Adams because he complains in weird ways where it's not really like a complaint. He's just like, yeah, I just got to do it, kind of thing. So he's like, I remember we're having beers, and he's like, and we're, I think you guys are talking about doing cigar club tomorrow or something while we're there on a Friday night. And he's like, yeah, I got to put in a fence tomorrow or whatever. And I got to put in a fence. And I think it's Andy is like, oh, you putting in a new fence at your house? Well, no. One of my renters has a neighbor or something that the fence is coming down, and they said, they'd split it, or there was something, they can't afford it. And I said, well, if I buy the stuff, will you guys put in the fence? And I don't think they know how to put in the fence. So I bought all the stuff, and so I'm going to go and I'm going to put in the fence. And he put it all the way around this other neighbor's house. It even covered his part of the property, but also covered the rest of their house. Gave them a brand new fence that he paid for and he put in himself. And listen, I put in 20 feet of fence, That's not a fun job.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm not having fun with that. So for him to do that is awesome. And I'm sure he did a fantastic job because and here's also what I wanted to say about Jay that you didn't highlight. You kind of highlighted some of those things but me and Jay do not see eye to eye on a lot of issues and a lot of different things. And you may have heard it on the podcast before where we talk about we have friends, or we might have even name dropped Jay a time or two where we sit there and say, oh yeah, you might disagree with that. But golly, do I love his heart and do I love him? Even if we don't agree politically or even maybe spiritually on some issues, none of that matters for how much I love that guy and how much he loves me and how much he loves other people.
Well, that's part of the reason why the generational thing is important, because I think part of the disagreement is he's very traditional in his theological views and you're not. But I also just think some of it's generational, and because we underestimate the importance of that, that's all. But yeah, we underestimate, there's a reason why generations. It's not just because young people are thumbing their nose at older people. It's because of things going on in the country, and they have a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I mean, if you would I
think I wouldn't say you've softened Jay. But Jay's now met someone who thinks a little Jay was at the forefront of that pacifism discussion that we've talked about many times on the show. It's just oh, okay. There's one in my midst that I did not, I haven't had a conversation. And so the fact that you could calmly articulate your position and do it firmly, but I also think in a way where you're I could be wrong about this. I don't think I am, but we're not very good at this. Is where our discussions are bad in America right now, where it's it's strong opinions weakly held. It's this is what I believe, and I'm not going to get in a fight over it. And if someone if I got pointed out tomorrow that I'm wrong, it'd be
I wouldn't get in a fight over it because I'm a pacifist. So
what?
I said, I wouldn't get in a fight over it because I'm a pacifist.
That would be ironic. Anyway,
I tell you about the one time that I called Eric Pedersen's sister the B word as a jest. I just was it was just kind of a bitch please moment. I was like, bitch please. And she was inebriated. Her brother was inebriated. I was not. I had to go chaperone a football game later that night, but I had a beer or two. But I was like, bitch please. And she was like, what'd you call me? Why'd you call me that? And she was like, does my brother need to beat you up? And Eric Eric's on the grass, laying down, and it was over at what's Eric Schlick's brother-in-law's house, Kinley and JR.
Oh, I know, the one way out north.
Is it JR?
Yeah, JR. Way out north.
Visalia. We were playing Beer Night, and Eric pipes up and he's like, Colton, do I need to come over there and beat you up? Or do I need to come over there and fight you? Because she was like, does my brother need to fight you? Colton, do I need to come over there and fight you? And I was like, I'm a pacifist. It would just be you beating me up. He laughed so hard at that. He literally got so tickled by that. He was just oh, literally couldn't do anything. It was completely de-escalated the entire situation.
Yeah.
Because it was a weird moment. I don't know. People got riled up. I mean, people get drunk. So that's just how that goes. But
Hannah's a feisty one.
Now she wouldn't give a damn if I said that, but at the time,
No, she's still feisty though.
Oh yeah,
she came up this week between my wife and I. I said, I don't see Hannah Pedersen not being clear about what she thinks. I don't remember what it was. It was something about females, and she popped into mind. I said, well, I can tell you, I think Hannah Pedersen would be quite clear about what she thought about this.
Anyways, back to the home church discussion.
Back to the home church.
Sorry. Okay, so that's the model. So we set up that whole model of what the church looks like. Now, to his first bullet point, he talks about the lack of love that exists. Genuine, true love, which Tim kind of talked about. And what that looks like, providing meals for people, blah, blah, blah.
I don't even necessarily know if it's that. I grew up in a house where, I think it's a step in the right direction where it's like people are going to give you a meal and they're going to be like, I feel for you or whatever. And I'm here for you. But who are the people that are genuinely there for you?
That was a lazy example. That,
No. That's fine. I think that, like I'm
that's
saying,
the crisis example.
it's still a step in the right direction. It's better than just sitting there and saying thoughts and prayers. We're not doing the whole like.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to change my Facebook profile to the French flag when there's like the shooting, like way back when.
Yeah, everyone their Ukraine flag.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're not doing that. We're not just gonna, or even blast it on your social media so that way you look like a good person. Where it's like, oh, my good friend, blah, 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 just had a death in the family. Thoughts and prayers for them, blah, blah, blah. Like, please do not do that.
Yeah, if you're not I think the way to do it where it's not a crisis. Well, I mean, you could argue it's still a crisis. It's where women can find other women to talk to and have conversations that they need to have that they can't have with their husbands, or their husbands don't want to have with them, because those exist. Sorry, like if you're like, oh, I share everything with with my husband. Sorry, there's stuff where your husband's like, I'm tired of hearing this, or he might even be fine with it, but actually you need another female perspective on it.
Or we just tune you out.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. He says he hears you.
I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I'm not tired of it. I'm just going to like zone out and then just be like,
but not in a toxic way, because that's where females get in trouble. Is not in a toxic way, but in a loving way, in a helpful way. And for men, it's finding what they're usually pretty bad at, which is being able to share. And I'm not even talking about feelings, just being like, yeah, I'm dealing with this. Like my kid's a shithead and I'm tired of it. Or, I'm arguing with my wife and just like, yeah, I get it. And not being an island, which most men try to be, particularly, I think your modern American guy, because it's even your metrosexual male. It's like, we don't share, or you don't share in a healthy way. That's part of being one another is you share, and then you're getting whatever the gifts of the Holy Spirit are, which is gift of prophecy. I'm looking for a new job. You know what? We're going to pray about that. We're going to pray about that. We're going to all just say like, we're going to all pray that you get that job that you're wanting for. Like, let's not like ask God, I really want that job. It's say, no, we're going to stake this out and say, I think I'd be really good at that job. It'd be good for my family. And we're all going to say like, Lord, we want this job for Harry, and we're going to pray for it. It's the gift of mercy of so-and-so cheated on so-and-so. And you have 6 other couples who don't side with one or the other and say, yeah, he messed up or she messed up. But we're going to call them to admit that they cheated. They stepped out on the marriage. But we're not going to throw you out of the village and be done with you. I think one of the hardest ones for a husband and a wife with kids is being able to talk about your kids, because everyone wants to talk about how great their kids are. It's really hard to talk about your kid who's not great for whatever reason, grades or whatever, because, it's a reflection on me. And churches are still, I would say churches either give off the vibe, or the vibe is internalized and it might be wrong. But there is a vibe still in church today. If your kids are bad, it's your fault. It's bad parenting, which is just the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't know what that's like.
It's very subtle, but
well, I mean, I know what you went through, so I don't have those experiences yet. I don't know. I try my best not to judge other kids. Also, I don't even know what the other kids' names are in Reese's 2-year-old class. So like, I'm not.
No. It comes later when they're teenagers.
Yeah, I know. That's where I'm like, that's more the part of it. I don't even know if Reese knows the people in her 2-year-old Sunday school class,
for
you
her.
know, or
She
children's
doesn't
church.
give a damn.
She walks in there. She doesn't even get excited for like any of the adults or anything that are in there. Or
She's like, I'm here.
she's like, I'm here for a balloon.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a balloon here. Get the fuck out. Like even like she doesn't say goodbye to like the teenagers that are watching her. She's just like, all right, mom and dad are here later.
So how would you describe, I mean, maybe you disagree or have more to say. Like what how would you describe what loving one another is?
Loving one another is,
Because I agree with Chan. I think most churches oversized they're not good at it. Everything's shallow.
I actually go to Aristotle's 3 levels of love.
Ooh. This is so timely because I just told somebody who's not a Christian, but we're trying to work on them. And I said, a lot of Christianity is very Greek informed. So
I talk about this with high school. I used to talk about
Aristotle laid the groundwork for Jesus unknowingly.
Well, some people say that. There's also people that say that Buddha laid down some of the groundwork for Jesus as well.
Yeah.
When you look at the Silk Road and
that
kind of stuff. So Aristotle gives out 3 different types of love. You have the love of the transactional. That's your base level. We go tit for tat. And none of these are wrong. Okay? Especially teenagers get offended by a transactional sort of friendship or a love that kind of happens. And I explained it to my high schoolers. Well, I used to explain it to my high schoolers when we would go through Of Mice and Men, and we would talk about the 3 different levels of friendship or love. And so we talk about the transactional because we look at George and Lenny's. If you've never read Of Mice and Men, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I highly recommend that you read that book. It's 100 pages. You can literally read it in a day. I know for some of you, you're like, I don't know if I could read 100 pages in a day. No, it's a super quick read. It's a novella, like the font size, everything. You could probably finish it in a couple hours, honestly. It's 6 chapters and it reads so quick. And it takes place over like 2 or 3 days. But when we go through this, we also go through, okay, so we look at George and Lenny's relationship. And so we identify the 3 different types of friendship and love, and then we kind of discuss them from there. This is back when I used to teach freshmen. I don't teach them anymore. But we start off with the transactional relationship. That's actually I explained to them that this is actually our relationship. For the majority of you that are in this classroom right now, we have a transactional relationship. You guys enjoy my presence. I enjoy yours. But a lot of what we have is transactional. It's I do this because, X, Y, and Z, and you get me your papers, you get me your assignments. And we have this transactional. And so like if I give you an A or, high grades or high marks, then you feel good about what's going on in our relationship. And I feel good because therefore you are an active participant in your education. And therefore it makes my life and my job a lot easier. And so we have this transactional relationship, and you're like, oh, that's so shallow, blah, blah, blah. It's the way the world works. You are going to have transactional relationships, transactional love that's going to happen in a regular time frame. You want to talk about Sunday mornings. You're like, we didn't engage in a Sunday morning. Most Sunday morning relationships are that transactional type of relationship where it's, hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? You say, yes, thank you, blah, 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 blah. And you have this transaction. Level 2 of Aristotle's levels of friendship is the friendship. I call it, he doesn't like give them names or categories. He just kind of goes to describe them. I call this one the friendship or of the convenient. And this is what, and so I talked about the Sunday morning. Sunday morning can kind of go in this, but actually most Sunday relationships or most church relationships are the friendship or the love of the convenient. And so what I explain to kids is like, you ever have somebody in your class that you guys get along just fine in class, but then you're no longer in the class together and for some reason you guys never talk ever again. And you might, like, occasionally, like, at some point, but you don't text them, you don't call them. There's no, yeah, you're not hanging out with them, but they're there in your class, and therefore you're with them, or they're on your sports team and you hang out with them all the time. So now let's take that to adulthood. The church, they're in your church. Oh, they had a death in the family. Oh, but what happens if I don't show up to church for a year? I'm off the map forever. Tim, you left TFBC. How many people actually gave a damn about you leaving TFBC? That actually called you, that actually like said, what is it that, and I was like, that's for you. I feel like there were probably more people that reached out to you about you leaving TFBC. I've never had nobody has ever come after me.
Leaving that church and no one from, I'll tell you, I didn't think about it at all. My wife's only said it once, but there was mama bear blood in her eyes when she said it. I'll have to have a conversation with her again about it. I can tell my wife's already hurt that neighborhood, like no one at neighborhood's contacted us. And if you want to be cynical about it, she and I were giving a lot of money to that church, and we stopped giving. And we didn't stop. We stopped giving for reasons I'm not going to go into. But one of those reasons is not because we were upset with the church or leaving the church. So, just sorry. I'm going to be. I don't have to explain myself, but I'm just for the purpose of this illustration. It's not because we were just like, well, we're going to take we're going to go anymore. We had kept giving for probably 6 months after we had stopped going because we agreed with the mission and the vision. And as long as we had decided on a church, it was, no, we'll keep giving to a church because, as you know, you and I have had a conversation about tithing. The way tithing is taught is incorrect, but I also believe you should be giving money to things where you think it's helping Christ's kingdom.
Yeah.
We stopped giving 4 or 5 months ago, and it's 4 figures. I'm not going to tell you what 4 figures it is, but it's 4 figures a month that we stopped giving. Now, you can, and no one said anything. Now, if you're listening to this and you've grown up in the church and you're kind of where Colton and I are, you can be like, well, you can't have it both ways. You're complaining that Church Inc. is not being Church Inc. I'm sorry. I still, look, Colton is correct. Church, well, we both make this argument. Too much of church is Church Inc. and too much of it is driven by money and all that. That's it. And making it very clear, you can have 2 seemingly contradictory viewpoints in your head on things. Is you could say it on the one hand, the church is too much like Church Inc. It is still church 101, day 1 of running a church is someone who's giving regularly stops giving. There's a problem. And you reach out to them. And no one's reached out. Now, that could be because it's Church 4000 and they're not missing my money. It could be because we didn't really make that much of an imprint there, which is fine. That's fine. We taught 2 or 3 or 4 financial classes, but yeah, we were there pretty much just on Sundays. Did a little bit of the men's ministry. So, maybe they don't miss us, but so I think she's a little ticked by that. Or I don't know if she's not ticked. Her feelings are hurt. I'm not. We didn't invest much there. That church, I talked about this church before at the beginning of this episode. I do want to say this. I feel like I am grateful to neighborhood. I feel like it was a hospital ward for my wife and I, where we needed to be patched up from the battlefield of church ministry. And I thought we were, where I'm surprised is when we walked into the old church this last Sunday, I thought we were completely healed, or I was completely so I'm not. But they did do a good job patching us up and sending us back out. And I think a lot of churches feel that need.
And that's one thing to keep in mind where you find out someone's church hopping, and if you've been in church a long time, you grew up in the church or you've been in church a long time, you're like, you should just be in one church. I think that's one thing to keep in mind and not be judgy about people who are church hopping. No, you kind of have to maybe, there's a church that's an intermediary that gets you kind of cleaned up from whatever bad experience you had at the first one. I don't know, but that's not your final destination where you go back. But no, to your point, no, I did not have anybody. No one at CSBC reached out to me to say, we haven't seen you. No one on the board.
Well, it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't have to even be on staff. Like,
I'm not criticizing you, but I never really thought about that till just now. And I, to which I'm grateful for, because then I'm not holding grudges against people like Brandon and all these people who I don't need to hold grudges against. Now, we did have conversations with those people.
Eventually, yeah.
I'm also not a shrinking violet. So, it might have been people were like, yeah, I could see him like he'd had enough and no one he'd had enough.
Well, I'm not
running around being like, fuck this place, I'm out of here. But also, I can see people like, no, the problem is the people that I really know are all friends with, are friends within like 2 or 3 degrees of separation with the people that we agree.
Yeah.
So Kellen's probably knew exactly why I left. They might have told Brandon, and then Brandon told 5. Although Brandon's not a big mouth, but Brandon's not a quote unquote big mouth. But I wouldn't consider that gossip either. See, this is where it gets. See that right there, where I got myself hung up. That sometimes is the problem with church, though, is you're not sure. Am I gossiping because we're told not to gossip, or am I just sharing information?
And so like you leave
small groups where someone's like, you see, that's not your information to share, so you shouldn't be sharing. I'm like, how's someone supposed to know if someone's like going through something if I don't share it like indirectly? That's just, now you're just adding guilt to someone being like, everyone needs to be concerned because so-and-so is going through this and they're not going to church because of this reason.
But that's okay. So that's
for that.
But that's my thing is, okay, so even if you had left, right? Like, let's say Kellen shares it to somebody that you were still close with that isn't at Kauai on Friday, that doesn't see you on a regular basis. If you really love them beyond the love of the convenient,
then you're going to reach out and say,
you're going to reach out and not even just be like, you need to come back to church or anything like that. Just be like, hey, are you okay? And you would be like, no, I'm fine. I just need a break. Like, I got to step away from this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, dude, let's get coffee sometime. Let's talk about it. And not to get you to come back. And that's also the other part where a lot of people believe that it's, they're dedicated to the mission and vision of the church rather than the mission and vision of Jesus Christ. And so therefore they're like, yeah, but, and they try to play this whole thing where, and that's where I don't necessarily like it when pastors reach out, pastoral staff, because then it becomes, what can we do to get you to stay?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's where, like, I know Danica was kind of upset or whatever, but I'm like, I think for them, it's we don't reach out when people stop, because again, that can go a lot of different ways. Because I was somebody who stopped and the pastor reached out to me to go, and I had to rehash it out with that pastor again over, stuff. So that we had already hashed out before. And then, it wasn't until like a year or two later that I just kind of really finally realized kind of how his character worked. And I was like, oh, okay, he did that for him. Like, that's what that was.
That same person for the same reason. It's not a discussion to hash things out. It's just a discussion to.
He just wanted closure. That's what he wanted. And which.
I told this guy to his face several times, like, I don't care about agreement. I care about clarity. Because those conversations were about leadership. And that's a Dennis Prager line. That's a great line. It's like, no, I actually in this moment, I don't value being on the same page. I mean, well, on the same page is a terrible phrase. Most people don't use that correctly. I don't want to agree. What I want to do is agree to disagree. And I'm going to leave this room and disagree with you and everybody else in this room who agrees with you, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut about it. But you think because I disagree, I'm go out and start complaining about it. But that's not what's going on.
Yeah, that's not even how the world works. You know.
Well, look, there's plenty of people who are on a leadership team who don't get their way, and they might be right, and they'll go around and tell everyone.
I start insurrections, mutiny.
These 6 other people are bums, but they're not listening to me. But that wasn't my look. I took flack from people for decisions I didn't even make, and just sat there and took it, almost being yelled at for decisions that not only did I not make, but didn't agree with. So this whole thing of like, I want us to all walk out of your agreements. Like, no, that's not how leadership works.
So, and I mean, and that's the part of, again, when it comes to church, and I would encourage you, if you're a listener to this and you go to church, I would encourage you to sit there and self-evaluate and I think that that's what Francis Chan was doing. Is he's like, when I look at the love that exists in church, it's either transactional or it's the love of the convenient.
Yeah.
And what he's truly looking for is what we talk about with that Greek word agape, or what we often refer to as the unconditional love. And it is very difficult for us to feel that for all people in the same way that God does. And so we have to sit there and say, okay, I as somebody who's barely stepped into this within the last 2 years, I can still give some kind of reference to it. I think about my daughter, or I think about my son, and I think about what I wouldn't do for them. And we need to, and that's the whole shirt off the back kind of mentality where it's this, what you wouldn't do for those people, what I wouldn't do for all those guys at Kauai, what I wouldn't do for Kellen, for Andy, for Nolan, Alec, Elijah, even you, Jay, Roke, Kellen. I give you everything I got, Robert. And that love I think that because of who we are as individuals, I think it can only happen on the small scale. We only have so much capacity, and we can continue to try and expand, but it's not like something where it's like you're going to instantly be able to have this kind of agape love for people in China or people in Detroit, people in Visalia if you live in Tulare. You can't necessarily even have it for the neighbors around you. The neighbors around you are still going to be the love of the convenient or the love of the transactional, but they could eventually have this kind of agape thing. You just have to work for it, and it has to be something that you have to be intentional about, and something that they also need. But also remember that the love and the unconditional is not about what the other person does. It's about what you do. I will love you unconditionally, whether or not you love me back. And I think for us as humans, and especially in the United States and in America, it is very difficult for us to expand that to, the infinite world, like the mass amount of people. And so we have to start small. And so that's where home church starts, is you have to start with this agape love, this unconditional love to start, and it may be a bunch of strangers that all get together, but that's where you all have an agreement where it's like, Jim doesn't have a car. I've got a car that I don't use 6 days of the week. Take it. I was like, and you know what? I'll fill it up on gas. And there's no time frame on when you get it back to me. It's and while you're going through that, I'm checking in on you. And not because I want my car back. I'm checking in being like, hey, how are things going? How are you doing? It's not transactional. It's not about whether or not you care about what I'm doing or whatever. I care about what you're doing for ulterior motives. Nope. It's literally just because I give a damn about you. And I just think that as we're just not hardwired, and we are being asked to be countercultural, but I think in this instance, in what church is supposed to look like, again, Jesus had his 12. And that's what Francis Chan talks about, where he has his 12. That's the inner circle. We have to have that discipleship, that inner circle that are with us. He lays that structure out where there are these guys that are, the scripture outlines that there are these 12 individuals that are part of Jesus's inner circle, and that there is this other discipleship, this other group of followers that exists outside of it. And so this is where, again, we look at things like social media, and church to me is very similar to social media in its own regards, where we have all of these followers, we have all these people that are so-called friends, but how much of them are just doing check-ins on you because it's convenient? All this information is just convenient for them to be able to check in on you. They give you likes or whatever because that's what's convenient. And I'm not sitting there, and don't do the fucking dumbass thing where you get on Facebook and you're just like, I'm out here trying to see who the real friends are. So give this a share or a like to prove that you are a real friend to me or whatever. Like, that shit's fucking bullshit because that proves fucking nothing. You gotta, it's just, it's about the people that are going to be there when you don't show up. I feel like, people are like, oh, it's when you're down. Who are the people that show up when you're down? And I was like, in this day and age, everybody hears about when you're down. It's about who are the people that show up when they haven't heard from you in a while. Because that's when they know when something's fucking wrong.
Yeah, and I mentioned at the beginning that I've been in a bit of funk, and Annie's been asking me how I've been doing. Shout out, friend of the show, Andy, and best friend, Andy. And I think part of the reason why I've been in a funk is Annie and I haven't had like one-on-one time because, we have good conversations at Kauai, and when there's 2 or 3 of us, but you really get to chop it up when it's just 2 of you. There's certain things you're going to have a conversation with when it's just one other person that you're not going to have when it's a group of people. And so he and I haven't had that in quite a while. So I think that's why I'm in a funk. And, I don't know if he's been in a funk about it or not too, but it's not anybody's fault. It's the ridiculousness of the holiday season from about Halloween till New Year. And part of it's just, his season of life where he's got kids away at college, but they're close enough to go visit them. And, this is the things that, I'm in no position to gripe about. But yeah, to your point, like, no, it's not when things are just bad. It's just like, how are things going? Well, things seem to be really good, or they are going really well. Here's why they're going really well. We had a friend go through a breakup, an abrupt one. And I didn't know I was going to take us all kind of being interested in it. It seemed like he was fine with it. And it was great that we all were. And, I'm not going to go into detail about it. That was a nice moment because, he tends to be fairly private. So I was like, I don't know if I'm treading on water I'm not supposed to. I wouldn't say private.
He's reserved.
He's reserved. That's the right word. That's different. Those are 2 different things, but that's the correct word.
He has J-like tendencies, even though he's pretty metrosexual, as you said earlier. He's the most metro out of all of us.
So I guess the challenge, we keep going back to home church. I guess what I would say, if you're listening to this and home church isn't an option, then my challenge would be, try to seek it out at the church you're going to.
And I mean, okay, so here's where I can get hypocritical, and maybe you haven't, if you haven't been listening in the past couple weeks. All right, so I've been pretty good actually for about 2 to 3 months now about going to neighborhood church. If you know me for a while, you know that I've taken a pretty good hiatus off of church for a while. But I've said on the show, I don't know, probably within the last year, and probably said it a couple times where I've said, there is something to the religious practice of going to church that I need my daughter to see, that I need my son to see. Because if I were to go to home church, which I truly believe that Kauai is home church, to where I feel confident that if I was the person, like, I mean, Lecrae, and there were things that I disagreed with in their conversation.
Lecrae is a different cat.
Well, but Lecrae, but even then, there were things that I disagreed with Francis Chan. Lecrae and Francis Chan were talking about eternity and standing before the throne and
Oh, yeah.
that kind of stuff. And they're up there and they're talking about this little bit of our lives, therefore determines all of eternity. And I was like, damn, that's the whole, like, that's the Hume Lake lesson where it's like, all right, I'm going to go be a homeless person in San Diego because I want to be a billionaire when I go to heaven. You know, like that's that thought process where, again, you've still made a decision for greed. You just haven't realized that you are doing things for greed. You've slapped God's name on it and have disguised it in a different light. So Francis Chan is talking about this, and he is talking about, but him and Lecrae, they talk about, when it comes to the religious aspect of attending church, going, that I'm trying to put this nicely. Like I'm really trying to figure out a way to say this to where it's like it's more formal than me sounding like Shorzy.
Go stick your church in your...
But okay, so there's this. So if we were to go to home church, which again I do believe is that genuine aspect of what is supposed to happen, I don't believe that my 2-year-old daughter, even if she got all the way through 12 years old, would be able to sit there and say with discernment that that's following Jesus, because she would just be like, oh, it just looks like you guys are just drinking beers on a Friday night. Like, you know, and in a lot of cases we are, but what we're doing is we're deepening our relationships with one another. And then from that, and I have not been able to be a part of the 2 really cool moments that you and Andy are on the cusp of, but I believe that I've played a part in some parts of those.
What do you mean? Andy and I.
I'm talking about Robert and Roke.
Oh, yeah.
And so I haven't been there for those, you know, those
evangelism moments.
Those moments. But I believe that we've all been a part of those in some way. And I think that there is somebody that's also on the list that'll be close at some point if he continues to hang out with us. And I think about Elijah. I was like, Elijah's the same age as us. I wouldn't be surprised if the more he hangs out with us, the closer he gets to start asking some of those questions. And because he's pretty open. He's just like, yeah, I don't mind it. Like, I just don't really know. He's pretty open about the fact that he's agnostic. He just doesn't know what it's called or anything like that. Like, that's just his whole concept. And so like I said, but even then we've had elements of where we've all changed our perspectives and the way that we respect one another and the way that we love on one another. I was like, you talked about my influence on Jay. Jay's also influenced me.
Sure, yeah.
You know, Andy has influenced me. You have influenced me. I gave you guys, I was like, my master's program requires for me to give recognition to those. And I gave you and Andy shout outs on my recognitions for my published masters that I have to give. because I believe that you two have influenced me significantly over this time and that kind of stuff. And so that means a lot to me. And so I don't think that, and this is the funny part that again, everybody fucking misses it, it never would have happened without Slancher at Kauai. Like it just, it never would have happened.
Right.
Like I would have never been there. I was like, if you wanted, I was like, I'm not the type that believes in the whole like destiny, fate, whatever. But I was like, but there was something about it where community was able to be had within this place. Genuine community where, again, we talked about it at the beginning, where it was like nobody was intentional about including us in this or whatever. Actually, I'll give you some background information. I was like, you'd be like, you bastards were using me all along. We had been hanging out with the Monteros because my wife went to school with the Monteros, with Heidi and with Curtis. And Curtis had gone with you to NASCAR. And I had mentioned to the group, I was like, oh, Tim gets people into NASCAR races. I don't know how or whatever. And I was like, you want to be friends with that guy. But we hadn't even hung out yet. It was like months or whatever. And then we were like, oh, whatever. And then we started hanging out. We were talking. I think it had been like a year or two of us all hanging out or whatever before I was like, I need to ask about this. What is this about you going to NASCAR races or whatever? And then you're like, oh, yeah, I like go or whatever. And I just go or whatever. And then you talked about it. And then I think you went on one. And I was texting you and I was like, where are you? And you're like, oh, I'm at a NASCAR race this week. And I was like, you bastard. We want invites on the next one. And you're like, okay, like we can make that work. Then we were like, but then it was Sonoma and I felt bad. That was our first time.
Was it your first time?
Sonoma was our first time, and it was your first time.
It was my
Sonoma.
first time, and your first time.
Yeah, and I didn't really know what the vibe was then. I was still in Kauai mode, and I felt like I was pushing you, and you're like, Colton, chill the fuck out. And it was like, oh, okay, my bad. I was still like in boys trip mode. It was like, I was like, oh yeah. That. I was like, we're
Everybody's
still working. Fine. You don't remember it. I remember it. And Nolan was too serious. He was like, and the rest of us weren't as serious. And then eventually from that, I was like, okay, I got a finger on the pulse of kind of what goes on and that kind of stuff.
I am different on those trips. Well, I'm different in moments. You now can tell, like, all right, Tim's in business mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to.
Actually, I appreciate that because, again, I like to go on those trips because, one, it's a really cool experience. But two, also, I kind of like helping you out. Like, that's just, I like to go. And
I think that it might have clicked with Nolan before, but it certainly clicked on this Rose Bowl. I am different.
I just like to be helpful. That's all. I'm just here to help you, man.
I am different on that trip than most. Like, certainly most people at Kauai don't see that side of me. Like, they might hear stories where I tell stories and they're like, okay, but then they actually see like, oh yeah, he's got like a whole other, like, I'm tired of the nonsense, or it's just like, I'm generally, I'm pretty laid back. Like, it's like, I could take a beer. I could, that it's never like, I'm never Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally, like whatever, I'll take whatever. But once it's like, no, I want it this way, it's going to be done this way. Well, someone said, I don't give a damn what they said. This is going to be this way because I'm the boss, and shut the hell up. Yep. And we're going to do it this way. And so it can be a little different when people are around like, oh, okay, all right. Look, I appreciate where you're going with that, which is one, and this is something I think you and I are both aware of when we talk about home church. And I think this is something, it's easy for Protestants to get lost, to lose the importance of ritual, because we're in the non-ritualistic side of the church. And I think the way Christ worked, the way Christ works and the way humanity works through the way God created us, there is a importance of religion. And I think it's one of the reasons why, because ritual's been just completely tossed out in this digital age. I think that's why a lot of young people are gravitating to Greek Orthodox and Catholicism is everything now is just like so casual, so whatever. And to have something be like, we're going to do this, we're going to meet, it's going to be 5 minutes of this, we're going to get up, we're going to stand up, we're going to be on our knees, like all that. It's so countercultural that I think it fits.
Yeah, there's something about practicing.
And that's the word. And so to see, I think the thing to teach, you and I would both love home church. But that's only if it becomes a ritual and it's actually a replacement of church where that's your thing.
Well, and
but I will say, when she's old enough, the lesson for Reese and for Jackson, which I think a lot of people have I think a lot of the people that you and I resonate with at the church we left at TFBC get this, because there's great people there. That's the one thing about that church. There's a good core, like 150 people who get it, and they get church. And I think that's the drawback. It doesn't matter who the pastor is. It doesn't matter who's running the church. And I think that's why our friend Brandon, that we've already mentioned, like, he's not going to leave, because it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, you could have a dumbass running the church. I'm going to be here because I have 100 people that I'm friends with, that I can do community with. And they can mess up everything around us, but we're still going to meet, and this is where I meet.
Yep.
I think the lesson for home church is not a replacement to church. Well, at some point, a true replacement, but the lesson for Kauai is church. Church is also where you make it. It's not just Sunday, or it's not just whatever day you do it. And it's not whether or not you meet at a campus and do it, or you do it with a group of people in your church on Sunday. It's also at work with people that you find who are Christians, and you get together once or twice a week or every day at lunch and talk about things. It's a social group that gets together at a bar or at a Chili's or an Applebee's or a local restaurant. It's playing cards. It's whatever it is. It's not just Sunday, and we've distilled it down to Sunday.
It's community.
Yeah.
Where are you getting your community from? And God talks about that there is a need for there to be a community of believers. And a community of believers doesn't mean that you get together on a Sunday morning and you all sing hymns or songs and then therefore you get a message. No, it means like an actual community. People that take care of each other. Again, if you were to look at the original church in Acts and you were to look at it, again, it's a commune is actually what they are.
Yeah.
To define it in modern day context. And in order for you to survive on a commune, you all have to give up certain things to take care of other people. You give up part of what you have to therefore give to somebody else. And we don't really, and nobody talks about that because, again, we live in capitalist America.
Oh, I'll speak to that directly. No church ever talks that way. And when they do, I can tell you what, if they're your typical Protestant capitalistic church, I've sat in rooms where I've had conversations with staff and other people on the church board of, well, this person's been here now like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and it's now time to just like cut them loose from the soup kitchen, or not the soup kitchen, but the food pantry, because they just won't get their act together. It's like, when did we turn into the government? This isn't welfare. Now, I will say,
I don't think she listens to this show, but I don't mind saying it. And I mean, she might have an opinion to which she would. My mother-in-law is that way. She worked for a company in our area in which sometimes you can get very cynical working with homeless people. Lots of people that you know can sit there and say they have a heart for the homeless people, and then they go and work in it, and then they come out scarred. Some people get in there and they thrive and they love it, and they're like, we have a deeper understanding. But some people go in and they come out most untrusting of homeless people that you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, shouldn't you work with homeless people? Don't you work with homeless people? And they're just they have no patience. And my mother-in-law is that way, where it's just she has absolutely no patience. I think when she first started, it was a lot about love. But then as time went on, it was like, all right, my love is conditional, or this company's love is conditional, because again, we only have so many. And I get it. If you're sitting there and you're doing budgeting and you got to do blah, 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 blah. But again, I don't think that necessarily aligns with the mission or vision of Jesus.
We had where I will, and even on that, I will admit, I bought it and I'm like, yeah, we can't just keep doing this. Where we did, the difficult conversation was we had a member of staff. They weren't like a pastor, but they were paid. They had, their wages were paid by the church, and they were continually using the food pantry. And I had to step in and say, we can't keep doing this. Now, and that was after a discussion at the board level and the staff level, like, all right, we either pay this person more money so they're not asking, or is it just they're not using their money well? And it was, you looked at what you're paying and we're like, well, they're getting paid this and their spouse is getting paid that. They're just not using their money well. And so that was a conversation where like, this isn't meant for staff members to be using this. So, we're going to give you another month or two, but you got to get your finances in order. And I think we even paid for that person to sit down with a Ramsey type to let their budget in line, to be like, this is just bad budgeting.
Yeah.
But when you got people I'm not talking about people in the neighborhood who weren't even going to the church, who are just constantly coming in and like taking 4 boxes of rice and beans. And it's like, this is what the whole thing's for.
Yeah.
We're not here to conditional them to be better citizens. Patience is one of the virtues we're supposed to have.
Well, and I think we've been honest about homelessness on our podcast.
This isn't even homelessness. This is just someone who, I don't know,
needs it.
Yes, they might be completely, who knows? They might spend too much money on whatever. And this is where churches just mean they're like, they live around the corner. I mean, if anything, if I'm running a church now, what I know now, it'd be like, we're running this church. This is the church that you and I used to go to, and that I'm talking about going to. The one that you're going to in the neighborhood is in an affluent neighborhood, so like this doesn't really apply.
Yeah.
But the one in Tulare, this is in a church in the middle of town that used to be surrounded by middle class people, now surrounded by lower middle class people. Well, I would say lower class to lower middle class people, for being honest. But it's a middle class to upper middle class church. And if I'm running that church, it's like, no, you guys all have a lot of money, and you give it to us. And the one thing we're going to do is we're going to give it to the people who are within like 4 or 5 blocks of us. And we're not going to give them a hard time if they keep coming back.
Yep. Because
if we're taking up this very large corner of this part of, that church takes up 2 square blocks, basically. If we're going to take up 2 square blocks and put all kinds of signs up and everybody knows it's a church and we're a church about this, at the very least, we can keep giving it to again, I'm not even going to put like a single mom it doesn't matter who they are. They keep showing up. But what happens is what you said, it becomes transactional. It's either, is it getting them to Christ, or are they getting off their feet and getting settled down? That's transactional, or it's conditional. It's transactional or conditional. It is, I will give them help as long as they then become citizens who aren't leeching off other people. So that's not our thing.
Well, and okay.
That's the world's thing.
But also, again, pastoral staff.
Adam Smith and Jesus aren't a thing.
And this is where, again, I've been very clear that I really don't care about the whole like finance aspect of church, because I do believe that it's a driving force for a lot of decision making. I remember being in meetings about certain activities that the church used to do before our previous pastor at that church got in. And I don't mind you stepping away from certain activities or whatever. But when you express it to your staff and you explain to them that the reason why you're doing that is because, well, it just doesn't, like, we don't retain people from that. Then you're just like, is that what this was always about? It was just about we only do activities for retention and therefore revenue?
Yeah, and I got to admit, I mean, I fell in that trap. It's just, yeah, it's all about.
No, but
No,
here's
I know what you're saying.
well, no, I know what I know you know what I'm saying, but also here's the thing, is that church is very good at making you equate retention with eventual salvation. If we retain them, that will lead to baptism and salvation. So we're saving people by retaining people.
I think American church has taken the Great Commandment.
And capitalized on it.
Well, it's taking the Great Commandment, and then it takes the day of Pentecost. And if you don't know if you're listening to this, you know what that is. That's when the day Jesus, he's been on earth for what, 60 days?
50. It's
50 days. After his resurrection, and he ascends into heaven, and everyone who's now the church starts speaking in tongues. And then after that, the church grows. And we hear these stories about church growing. And that's all great. And certainly Jesus gives us 2 commands. He gives us the commandment of love one another, and he says, go out and spread the gospel. But if I'm really being honest, I think if the average church person, the average pastor, staff, and I would say even like lay person who really believes in evangelism is more influenced by 20th century capitalistic market growth bullshit than they are that commandment.
Well, that's because
And I think and Chan hints at that in this discussion with Lecrae, where he's like, the numbers become a problem. And I think what happens is your average church leadership group, which is lay people and pastor, get together and they dress modern capitalistic things of if you're not growing, you're dying, which I don't even believe is necessarily a good business rule either, but that's a whole other discussion that people can get angry with me about. But if you're not growing, you're dying. They take that and then they put on top of it Bible verses that justify that, and then it turns into toxic
Bible
Christianity.
Bible verses taken out of context, by the way.
Bible verses taken out of context that then turns into Church Inc.
And then you have this juggernaut that can't be taken down because, well, you can't miss Sundays because that makes you a heathen, and therefore if you don't participate in a church or a ritual process. Now, I think we should end on this. I think you should talk about, because again, we've talked about the home church, that kind of thing. But you kind of hinted at it where you're like, yeah, the Spirit's leading us. But you need to talk about why you feel like it's really important over the last, I was like, you've taken a hiatus from church. And so you need to say, you don't need to get into all details, but I was like, why is it that I've expressed that, like, I feel like I need to be a part of the religious practice where I have to do this routinely and to show that God is a priority in my life. And I think that the easiest way for me to do that is to give up one day a week. I give out. It's so crazy that seems like that's like the easiest thing to visibly show my daughter and my son, is to give up an hour of my week to go to someplace. Like, again, when you say it out loud, it even sounds more dumb than like, anything else. But like you've talked about, where it's like,
look, I mean, at one level it is dumb. I'm sorry, just to call her both. I'm calling everybody, like I'm calling myself. Yeah, at one level it is kind of dumb. We're not carving 1 hour out, but so I hope. So I guess I'm gonna come at this a couple ways. One, you and I have talked a lot about a home church. we've also talked about how we talk about home church, but we're not willing to do home church. And if that sounds hypocritical, whatever, I don't care. Because I do think home church requires I think home church comes out like after, I'm sorry to be kind of like morbid about it or pessimistic. I think home church happens because like, frankly, like America implodes or the economy implodes and like churches as we know can't continue to exist, or it happens just really gradually where one generation after another isn't resonating anymore with corporate church. And when I mean corporate church, I don't mean I mean business inc. church. I mean industrial church as we do it, in the same way we do industrial school, as kind of what I think of is as an outmoded way of doing things.
Can I say, before you continue?
Yeah.
And I think that this might unpack a can of worms as well. But if I were to host a home church, like let's say I open it up on a Saturday evening, I say, because I don't want to do breakfast on a Sunday morning. I don't want to do it. But I'd be like, all right, I'm inviting you. I'm inviting Danica, Trish, Andy, Eric, Nolan, Alec, Ryan, Elijah, if he wants to come, Robert, Jay, Kelly, Kellen, Abigail, Roke. I don't know Roke's wife's name. I've honestly never met her. So I extend the invitation to the whole Kauai crew. And sorry if I didn't give you a shout out in that it's been a while since I've been to Kauai, so don't at me. I don't think people would come. I think we'd show up I think people would show up for like a week or two out of pity, and then eventually it'd be, even if I kept it up every week, I feel like people would miss, and they're like, yeah, it was like, they'd be like, I need to go or whatever. And I mean, it might be part of the whole, like, I'm saying no for people, but I love my friend group. But I think that my friend group has their routines and the way that they like to do things already set.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
and even if I did it Sunday mornings during, like, again, I'm inviting people out to my home on a Sunday morning at the same exact time they would go to church, I don't think that they would come to mine over the routines and stuff that they already have set.
well, I mean, as much as we've been nice, I mean, and I'm not even being critical of other people. That's where I kind of look. I don't have any more moments where I'm like worried where I'm about my salvation, but I do worry about lukewarm. I mean, I don't read lukewarm Christian as being you're going to go to hell, but it does mean like we're not supposed to be lukewarm. And sometimes I wonder if, I don't even know if I wonder, I'm trying to get out of being lukewarm or doing my best to not be lukewarm. And I think a lot of us are that way because, like you said, we got routines and professional life and distractions and yards to maintain and yada, 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 which is why if I were going to start home church, I wouldn't do week to week. Now, that's why I haven't said it on the show. It took a month to get it off the ground. I picked a bad time of the year to start it, but I invited our friend group to do breakfast once a month, 6:30, just in the morning, just get together and have breakfast. And Danica said, "Why not once a week?" And I was like, "Because I think once a month to start, and then if a bunch of us start finding that once a month works, then we can go to twice a month or once a week. But I'm not gonna like jump into not doing, from not doing breakfast at all to like once a month. And so if I were to do home church, and every time we talk about it, I'm just like, we should just start it. It would be like, I wouldn't do it as a replacement. I would do it as a once a month thing or every 6 weeks thing, and then just get into the routine. And as everyone found where I think I got an understanding of whoever's able to show up without judgment. I agree with you. Some people aren't going to show up because of routines or whatever. But if you have let's say half that group is the core group and everyone seems comfortable, then you go to, if it's every quarter, then you go to every month, and then once a month, maybe you start doing it twice a month.
More like a koinonia kind of setup.
Yeah. And partially just because home church doesn't work where we're at.
That's not going to be a Christianese word. I was like, if you don't know koinonia, then that's okay. You don't need to know.
Yeah, we'll do that some other time. So, did we address that? So I can go back to why.
No, I thought that was good addressment. I was like, I just thought.
I think that's fair. I mean, that's the concern. But, on the other hand, it's just, all right, we'll try. And then if everybody does, then, or nobody shows up, then you try again and you try again. I don't know.
But okay, so that's, well, I mean, so you go from there to, all right, so then you be okay with being Sunday people, right? So like if you go to the once a month, then I sit there and I say, then you have to be honest about what it is that you're doing on Sundays. You're going to the surface level shit.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that once a month I'm getting together with my real family, my community. I'm going and I'm doing this religious practice once a week, but once a month I meet with my family. And we discuss about how's life? How's everybody doing spiritually? Is there anything that we can do to help? Are you struggling with this? And you don't put a fucking time cap on it. It's not 6 to 7. It's 6 to whenever people go home. It's a chance for us to be a genuine and clear, but intentional at the same time.
That's the hard part, is figuring out a way to be intentional about it without being churchy about it, I think.
I don't think you have to be churchy about it, right? We sit there and we say, all right, we're going to have dinner. Everybody comes over. We're going to have dinner. And we're going to say, everybody eats. And then, all right, wait, we're done with dinner by about 6:45. All right, we're all going to meet in the living room. Yeah, you run it like it's a fucking... Again, this is where I say that youth pastors and pastoral staff have had it on lockdown and have been doing it the right way for the longest period of time. Your fucking college group, it's the same fucking thing. You opened up your home, you gave people a meal, and then you sat them down and you said, and you don't even have a lesson or agenda. You start off with, how's everybody doing? Anybody got anything they want to share?
Yeah, and then we got flack for that, but I didn't get flack from my immediate boss, which was Brandon, but we got flack from parents whose kids were in there, like, you're not doing a lesson. It's like, because we'll do a lesson. Most of those kids have grown up in the church, so, at this point, they'd heard a million lessons, and so I was going to do a lesson. I was going to do a lesson that I felt was going to challenge. This was before even, like, I'm on where I'm at now, where I'm like, there's a lot of bullshit I grew up believing in the church. It was just, I knew the culture had changed quickly to where, even in Tulare and Visalia, you had to be careful how you approach church or Christianity to I mean, if you didn't care and pissing people off, then you could be an asshole about it and just be like, you're going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus. But my thing was, I want to prepare you for going into the world where you think everyone agrees with you and they don't. Most of them don't. And so let's attack the Bible that way. And then when we didn't have that kind of a thing to talk about, it was just like, so everyone's weak. And then sometimes that was 12 people breaking out into 3 groups, and not like 3 groups of 4, but like 2 of 2, 1 of 2, and 2 of 6, and people just having a conversation and getting around and catching up, and everything's turned into Sunday school in church, and sometimes that's just not helpful. It's just,
well, yeah, and I would get up in front.
Now, I would be, to your point, for the small group, for home church, I would try to be intentional of, how's everyone doing? And does anyone want to share what's going on? And like, even those who aren't believers at that point can be like, yeah, you know what? I'm really, like, Roke can say, like,
well, but
I'm just speaking for Roke. Like, I'm having a hard time in retirement. Like, I'm bored as hell. That's a great moment for everyone to be like, okay, yeah, we appreciate that. Like, I didn't know you're going through that.
Yeah.
Or Robert, like, you guys see me every 6 weeks and I'm always talking about how good the job is. It's also kicking my ass, and I'm not seeing my family. I'm not saying at all this is what's happening, but I'm just saying, like, I don't see my family as much. Like, oh, yeah, that really sucks. And then you start realizing, oh, this is what a Christian is. It's loving one another and not judging and being like,
Andy gets up there and he's like, I'm finding it really hard to be a Manchester United fan right now after they sacked my manager for like the 80 trillion time in a row. And you're like, yeah, I'd be like, I'd hop in right on that. And I'd be like, yeah, dude, I know exactly what you're going through. But I mean, like, but that's also where I feel like if we had it, I'd get up and I'd be like, and we'd start off. I feel like we start off every one of those sessions where we sit there and we have a conversation about, we talk about, and I don't even think that we would read from a passage in Acts. I was like, we could probably quote one and we could be like, this is, or James even, this is pure undefiled religion. But from that aspect of, we're here to establish community with a set of believers, and this is our family. And we want to take care of everybody in our family. And so we want to know what's going on in order enough to help each other out and to take care of one another. And if you don't have anything going on or you don't have whatever, that's okay. But we want to take this time to be intentional with one another and talk about anything under the sun, whether it be spiritual, mental, physical. What are the needs that we can be praying about, that we can meet physically, to express our love for one another, because we love each and every one of us in this room. And some of us may be new to this room and some of us may be out of this room, but we are committed as a group of individuals to love one another unconditionally and give and prosper together. And then be intentional as a group about kind of what you talked about, where what are we doing outside of this? Where you guys talked about, you took over a soup kitchen or whatever. What is it that we do that's intentional in our community to make a difference as a family, as a group of believers, where it's like we all go to different churches and we all practice. We do our practice on Sundays, but we get together where we all care for one another regularly and have a chance to do that regularly and be intentional about it. And that would be something that I would also specify. We want to be intentional that this is our moment to talk about what Christ is doing in our lives, and not even necessarily, you may sit there and say, I don't have anything that I need help with, but I want to talk about what Christ is doing in my life. And let us celebrate in that as well. Because I think that that's huge, that we don't do enough of either. I'm not even, and if you know me, I'm not a Holy Ghost power guy.
No.
Like I'm not the open mic type.
No, and those things, and that takes time, but it's to what Chan was talking about, fruits of the Spirit. Most people don't know what their fruit of the Spirit is until your average Christian, and maybe Chan would disagree with me and say, no, that's not true. And I'd say, well, you have an idealistic view of church. And the scripture I don't think says anything about this to contradict me or back me up. But my view of human nature is, it's usually another believer who's spiritually in tune. I don't mean like they know what their gift is, but like they're in tune. It's usually someone else who says, you know what? They tell you what your gift is. Particularly on some of the more like spiritual side ones, like the serving one's an easy, like that's a little bit easier, like, identify. It's somewhat like the gift of discernment or whatever the Bible verse, whatever translation you're reading is close to that. That's usually someone coming to you and saying, whether it be a pastor or another person in the group, that says, you know what? You give really good counsel to people when they're going through something. And people who are usually good at discernment or whatever you want to call that, they don't know. They're just like, oh, okay, which is what you want. Because you don't want someone who just spouts off every week and says, oh, you should do is blah, blah, blah. And I read it in a book. It's the person who sits there and like,
I love,
you know what? I think in this moment, I would not confront my boss at work, or you've reached the limit at your work. So go tell your boss what you think, but do it in a loving, like stern way. And like, and if that if they don't want to give you a raise, then whatever the thing is, or more personal, get over whatever your daughter did to you 10 years ago and go just tell her you love her, and don't ever bring up what she did 10 years ago. Just get over it. And the person will be like, yeah, she's my daughter. Like, why am I still mad about this? Like, an average person does that, doesn't think like, oh, I'm really good at discernment or counsel or whatever, whatever biblical, that spiritual thing is. Like, they don't think that way.
Yeah.
But that's what comes up in those moments, like that group that I mentioned, that where we all got to get really close. Like, there's that older lady who had a son that she just every week it was complaining about him being a deadbeat or some, I don't even remember all the things he's complaining about. And you could tell everyone else in the room. I mean, this is where small groups really work, and where I would say it's not small groups. That's church.
Yeah.
This is church. Stop calling it small groups. This is actually church. Is everyone else in that group, there was, I don't know, 7 of us, 6 or 7 of us. There were 6 of us. It was 3 other couples. The 3 other couples, because she's a widow. The 3 other couples, the 6 of us, I know for a fact, for 6 weeks, we're like, oh my God, if she brings up her son again, I'm going to kill myself. So it wasn't like we were all like, oh, let her spill the beans. It was like, get over it already. Enough already. He's a grown-ass man. Just throw him out of the house. Or, there was a lot of griping internally, not amongst the 6 of us, but I'm sure all 3 couples individually went off and said, will she shut the hell up about her grown-ass son living at the house and acting like she does? That's how that went. And then at some point, we softened and she softened, because that's what happens when you get in front of people who are actually, that's what happens. It's not like, oh, you're missing the point. No, we softened. And it was like, as we softened, we started then telling her how she could address, and maybe, we started counseling her. But it wasn't like we all had the answers.
Yeah.
There was a refining of us too, of like having to like deal with the person who wants to deal with the same issue every week, and my issue's more important, or enough already. This isn't that big of a deal, or get over it, old lady. There's also a softening of us of just being like, no, this is the thing she's going through.
And that's important to her.
And it's important to her. And she might be mishandling it, but it's still important to her. And you don't handle it by saying, just shut the hell up and get over it already, or kick him out of the house. You just sit there and frankly, all we did was let her vent over and over. I don't even think any of us said anything of counsel. We just let her gripe, because she was a widow. And who did she have to gripe to? And then over time, she softened. Now, I don't mean like everything got hunky-dory with her and her son.
Yeah.
But that's church.
Yep.
You and I need to I'm not saying like tonight. We need to really like think about, you and I need to think about getting intentional about this whole friend group, even if we do like once a quarter or twice a year even. But I think we need to get serious about just like getting everybody together and let those who aren't believers yet like dip their toe in. We're going to have a meal and we're going to have a conversation. We're not going to make you feel uncomfortable. It's not, we're going to call you out and say you have to say something, but this is what it means to get everybody. And that won't happen immediately, because here's the thing. We dudes are all comfortable talking to each other. We're going to get wives in the room, and those wives don't know each other very well. That's the difficult part.
Yeah, it'll be surface level conversation.
So it'd take a while, but I think it's still something to do. And that's something to do is just get meals together and have everyone talk. And it doesn't have to be like, so everyone's doing. But I do think there needs to be, from ground zero, something intentional. And it doesn't have to be overtly Christian, but it's like you or me standing up and saying like, hey, it's not just everyone gets a meal and then we all like break up and then go into groups like most dinner parties happen. It doesn't have to necessarily be around, we all eat around a big table, elaborate table, but it's all hey, we want to make this intentional and we're hoping this leads to other things where we get together once a quarter or whatever, but we all figure this is our friend group, certainly the males. We all want to get together and we hope this leads to some bigger, broader thing of community, whether it means we meet every couple months or
Yep.
once a month, and then from there.
Yeah.
So to answer, so the reason why we're going back, I'm not really sure why.
But you still feel like no, you.
Well, I feel like it's important to be around people that I really know, even if it's.
Oh, well, I'm not necessarily talking about necessarily going back to TFBC. I'm talking about why do you feel like it is important that you have been adamant.
Oh, I think church.
That you need to practice. Like you've like.
I don't know. I think it keeps you honest. I don't know how to. There's something in the ritual of.
Because you've sat there and you said, I haven't been doing a good job of leading this household. And I'm not going to get, I don't necessarily believe that's true about you, but that's something that you've had on your mind.
I told you that. I
heart.
told you that recently, and I told my wife that I feel like I was failing the household, which is just her and myself at this point. There's no kids in the house.
Yeah, but
not being the one who says we're going to get our ass up on Sunday, we're not going to sleep in, we're going to go to church.
But there's something to that, to where you are sitting there and saying that you are feeling compelled that there is a reason to go to church that is somehow going to make it either, you're like, there's something to that where we're healthier, either spiritually, mentally, physically, from this process of going to church. And I don't even feel like you give a damn about where it's at. Again, you're like, we've tried here, we've tried there, we've done this. Like,
no,
I think you have like baggage with some of these areas, or you have things that you don't necessarily agree with in some of these areas. But at the same time, you're just like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter where we go. We need this practice in our lives on Sunday mornings.
Look, 21st century peak compassion society. We're not. Americans are bad. Americans, particularly my persuasion of Americans and all of our friends, like the right-leaning friends. Let's just be honest. Like, obedience to authority is not a thing on the list, and I think there's a problem, particularly within evangelical circles of evangelicalism, even if it's still very like. Even if your brand of evangelicalism is pro-life and anti-gay marriage and anti-homosexuality and yada, 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 there's still a very therapeutic sort of God's my best friend, Housewives of Orange County bullshit element to it. Like, oh, Jesus is my best friend. And no, he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I think I said something to you in the last couple of weeks about understanding, I think there's something to getting down on your knees and praying to him. It's sort of in the same vein. Like, look, we are obedient to God. It's not just we follow him and he's our best friend and, do you make me feel? No, there's more than just he's my best friend and he's my counselor and he's my buddy and he's my savior. Like, no, he's also. So I would boil it down to an unconscious or subconscious belief of obedience. And, as in the current system that we have, where we have corporate church, and again, I mean corporate in terms of corporate America, like that way. Small c corporatism also works at, corporate in the plain literal sense is just people getting together. I mean, in the American business sense of corporate church, as long as that is still the model and you haven't fully replaced it with some sort of home church, what's the word? Entrepreneurial church instead of corporate church. I think, yeah, I don't care whether or not you really like the church that you're going to. There's still something about getting up and giving up a whole hour and a half, 2 hours between the time you get ready and the time you come home of going to church.
I agree.
And you might not get anything out of it. Although and I'll even say this, if you're finding yourself and you're going to church and you're not getting anything out of it, that's your problem. I don't care how bad the pastor is. That's you showing up with a bad attitude. It's hard if you sit there and just like, all right, I'm going to get over myself and just be like, I'm here and I'm going to listen. You're going to get something out of it. Now, it might not be that big in depth, but if you're someone who routinely shows up and like, I don't get anything out of it, that's probably more you. You're showing up with a shitty attitude. And that doesn't mean you need to stop going. And just means to be like, get over yourself, get up, go to church, take your family.
That's why I had to leave the church that I was previously at.
Yeah. And so look, there's everything
Had a bad attitude.
We live in a world of, we talk a lot, like we live in a world where we like to talk about gray areas, but we're really not. We're as much black and white as any society's ever been. And so go to church, but I'm sure, without judging individuals, a good third, if not more, of the church in America since its founding is all bullshit people who don't actually believe and they go to church because they own the town hardware store, they own the town car dealership or whatever, and you got to be, in order to be a member of the Better Business Bureau in the Chamber of Commerce, you need to be an elder of good standing at the Baptist or Methodist church in town. I'm sure that's a thing, which is why the church in America has been so lukewarm. But don't use that as an excuse for you to be like, I'm not going to go. That's not an excuse. You still need to go and get something out of it. Look, there's a reason why during COVID and we're watching stuff online, a group of us said, this isn't working anymore. We need to have home church. I don't give a shit what the rules are about getting together. And we didn't do it to thumb our nose at the state of California. It was because like, this isn't working.
Yep.
I'm used to seeing people on Sunday that I'm of like mind to, or just say hi to and how things going, even in the most shallowest form. And I think that little bit of home church that we did was important, not because it like proved that home church works, but it was just like, it got us over the hump.
Yeah, and the only reason why it ended was because people were trying to one-up each other.
And it ended because like three couples got COVID. And then that was enough. And then
Well, I think it also ended. I think it also ended because of what we just talked about. I think that certain people in the group that weren't necessarily hurting from church were like, "No, I still need the practice, and this doesn't feel enough like a practice."
Yeah.
Even though we were being intentional about it or whatever, it was still, they needed that practice element in their life. To which I feel like that's what I was getting at. What I was saying was like, I feel like you could do a Saturday night and then Sunday you could still go and practice and people would be like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you're going to do home church, you got to do it with like really gung-ho people who are out on church and they're really in on. I mean, in some ways, I think home church only works if like this is really going to be your home. This is going to be your friend group. Like these are people you're going to spend Thursdays with and Saturdays with and Sundays once a month with other home group. Like this is like this is your group of people. It's not a group. It's not like one group of people and then you've got another group of friends. Like this is really your group of friends and your true church and out of church community is this church group, which I don't, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If your friend group is all believers and you're all gung ho, I mean, you can't criticize that. If anything, that's what, the Bible seems to, a lot of what Acts and other parts of the New Testament talk about. So if anything, you're living out what the church is. But, for those of us who have friends outside of church and don't feel those friends are drawing us away from Christ, we don't necessarily have that. We're distracted. I will say we're distracted a little bit more from having that full-time community with just believers. So, but yes, I'm glad you made me hone in on that. As much as we talk about home church and we think that's probably the solution somewhere down the road. There's a level of sinfulness if you're just like, I don't want to do church because it's Church Inc. and blah, 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 blah. Because church is, these are still man-made institutions, or these are men running institutions. They're fallen. They're not all well run. Find one that's not toxic, if not abusive, and that's about as good as you can ask. And then get involved in some way that makes where you're comfortable. And I'll say this too. We need to wrap this up, but I do want to say this. There's a moment in that interview with Lecrae where I think he asked Chan if he's got any regrets. I don't know if it was this part or not. Chan doesn't say he has any regrets, but he does. He says at one point that he wishes his younger self was more collaborative with his elders at that Cornerstone church that he founded, instead of being a leader who just got out there and then told the elders where they're going to go. And as much shade as we throw at pastors, deserved shade, and maybe we talk about this on another episode. Well-run churches are not churches that just have a really good pastor. It's because they have a group of 5+ men and or women who are every bit as much a leader as that pastor. Maybe they're not a teacher, but they have a common vision. They guard that vision jealously. They know where that church is. They're everything in a pastor you would want, other than they're not a professional pastor. And that is what holds back. It's as much crap as we give professional people who are paid to be pastors. I would say that's the number one problem with churches, is you don't have healthy lay people who know their limitations, so they don't get over their skis when they're telling a pastor how to run a church when they don't know what the hell they're talking about, or they're not there the 5 days a week when they got to interact with people. But they also have the stones to hold a pastor accountable and provide long-term leadership. Or also, everyone in that room agrees we need to do something, and it's going to be really unpleasant because the people in the church don't like it, and you go out there and say, I know you don't like it. This isn't how we've done things. And you and I go back a long time, and I'm telling you this is the direction we need to go. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. I'm not telling you just go somewhere else, but this is that kind of leadership. That's the kind of leadership that really holds churches back. And what I'd really like to know is what that conversation was when Francis Chan left Cornerstone. And obviously, maybe that didn't go so well. I have no idea, but hopefully it went really well. We're like, yeah, you know what? You started this church. We understand where your heart is. You've outgrown this place. You're trying to make it into something it's not. At this point, we're an 8,000 person megachurch. And so to try to turn it into a small church is not going to work. And so we're going to love you no matter what happens. And we're never going to say a bad word about you because we don't have a word to say about you. And feel free to come back and preach anytime. And that's the secret sauce behind behind successful churches. It's the people you don't know who are sitting back there, who are running the church, but they're doing it quietly, and they're not letting the pastor do whatever they want. They're putting in guardrails, but in the area where the pastor knows what to do, they're giving them the freedom to do that and not second guessing them. And those are the two pitfalls in church, is letting a pastor. I would say in Pentecostal leaning churches, the pastor is just allowed to run wild with no leadership. And on the other side, when you get towards more the Presbyterian, even certain Baptist churches, it's leadership micromanaging the pastor and not letting them do their job, and just, you make sure the bills are being paid, people aren't stealing money, and we're not running wild on something outside the agreed mission and vision of the church.
Yep.
All right. Well, hope that was helpful. It's still not going to be the last of our conversations on this. Sorry. I mean, this is the way it is. We're going to keep fleshing this out. Maybe if somebody out there, maybe if we do, start trying your attempt at home church. Again, home church doesn't have to be a replacement for Sunday church. It could be a replacement for small group. Or it's not a replacement for anything. It's just, hey, we're all Christians and we're all friends. We went to college together, whatever. Let's get together. Church is wherever you make it. It's not just a thing on Sunday, and it's certainly not a campus or a building or two buildings that make up a church. It's much smaller than that, and it's certainly much bigger than that. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Go to Hell podcast. Send us a note. I don't know. I don't care. Whatever. Rate and review. We don't give a shit. And if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan, you can definitely go to hell. I hate you.